It all kicks off on a super busy winter night, with snow dumping down on folks in the street. A family walks by totally hyped, just soaking in the holiday vibes. The little girl is absolutely mind-blown by the giant Christmas tree. The MC, who's just passing through, watches the whole scene from a distance. Annoyed, he figures it's just standard to have to shrink himself to make way for others, since he's the only one flying solo in that massive crowd. Walking around aimlessly, our guy keeps navigating the packed street. Out of nowhere, he just stops dead in his tracks. A feeling of total emptiness hits him as he lets out a heavy sigh. Just ahead, he notices there's another person completely isolated in that place. A dude dressed as Santa is on the ground, shivering his out in the snow. Normally, our guy would just walk right past without giving a single flying hoot. But hey, it's Christmas Eve. Literally the exact same day his parents passed away in an accident, leaving him totally alone in the world. With that playing in his head, he pulls out his wallet. Walking up to the big guy in red, he hands over a few dollar bills to help out. On top of the cash, the MC also hands him a heat pack, making sure it's not expired first. Suddenly, Santa grips his hand super tight, hyping up his kindness. The old man insists on returning the favor and demands to hear the kid's wish. Thinking the guy is a total nutjob, the MC immediately regrets helping and tries to yank his hand back. But plot twist, he can't move a single inch, totally freaked out that he's getting physically overpowered like that. The old man doubles down, saying he came to grant a wish to a kind soul. Begging him, Santa warns that he can't head back to his village until he grants this wish. The guy just gives up fighting it, exhausted by this whole bizarre setup. So he drops a deal. If he spills what he wants, the old man finally has to let go of his hand. Getting a super hyped nod in return, the MC decides to just get it over. Without putting much thought into it, he asks to hit the lottery jackpot. Seeing right through the cap, Santa demands a wish that comes straight from the heart. Deep down, what he really needed was a squad of family that would never bail on him. He confesses he wants a wifey with bunny-like vibes and a kid as cute as a little mongoose. Catching the scent of that genuine wish, the old man realizes just how much isolation this kid has been dealing with all this time. The old dude celebrates hitting the jackpot by finding a soul so similar to his own. Promising to deliver, he guarantees he's going to find him a pure-hearted wife and an awesome daughter. Spooked by all that intense energy, the MC yanks his hand back and absolutely books it. He calls the old man crazy, 100% sure the guy has lost his marbles. In the background, Santa yells that everyone in the village is rooting for him, and that he'll use all his power to make that wish happen. Already sitting on the train heading home, our guy tries to process that wild encounter. Chilling in the train car, he reflects on the absolute nonsense he just listened to. Literally, anyone could tell that dude was talking like a straight-up lunatic. Even so, he admits to himself that it really was his biggest dream. At the end of the day, he just wanted to be happy and have precious people by his side. Exhaustion hits like a truck, and he ends up falling asleep right there. A little while later, he wakes up sensing a weird smell and feeling freezing cold. Confused, he opens his eyes, trying to figure out what on earth is going on. Absolute shock takes over when he realizes his surroundings have completely changed. Now he's being hauled in some sort of busted, horse-drawn wooden wagon. Locked inside a wooden cage, our guy wonders where the heck he ended up. He checks out the other guys around him, all rocking a style way different from what he's used to. Looking at the outfits and the scenery, it was giving major Middle Ages vibes. Trying to process the shock, he realizes there's literally no one who looks like him there. He notices the guards are speaking a completely made-up, unknown language. The whole thing felt like a medieval movie set where he doesn't understand a single word. Not knowing if he's in a dream or if this is real life, reality starts to sink in. He comes to the wild conclusion that he just got ice-guyed to another world. Taking a deep breath, the MC tries to chill out amidst the madness. Spotting a cellmate huddled up near him, he decides to try and make contact. But the second he taps the guy, the body drops heavy and totally unresponsive. Whispering an apology, he realizes the dude had already clocked out for good. Hit with a major reality check, he understands he needs to focus on his own survival right now. Thrown on the floor of the wagon, he remembers Santa's crazy promise about granting his wish. Frustrated, he wonders if he completely misunderstood the definition of the word happiness. Praying that this is all just a bad trip, he mentally begs to wake up already. But days roll by and the wagon just keeps moving nonstop. During that time, he figures out that everyone there, himself included, has been turned into prisoners. The soldiers are dragging the group all over the place for one specific reason. Their whole goal is to hand off all the captives to the local villages they pass through. Whenever the wagon stops, the guards pop the cage open and tell everyone to get out. They line up, while the local bosses pick the ones in the best physical shape. Standing there looking submissive was doing major damage to his pride. But honestly, it was also his only ticket out of that garbage wagon. Feeling pretty confident in his own build, he gets his hopes up about being chosen quickly. But reality hits hard, and he keeps getting rejected after hitting up several villages. Panic starts setting in as the endless road trip drags on. The wagon bounces along dirt roads, shaking away every last drop of his optimism. Totally wiped out, he collapses on the floor, wondering how things got this bad. Remembering his mom's advice to live life to the fullest, Juin questions if there's even a point in living like this. In that moment, childhood memories hit him right in the feels. Tossed on the freezing floor of the cage, he calls out for his parents, unsure if he can endure this nightmare much longer. The image of that crazy Santa promising to use all his power to grant his wish pops back into his head. Peeved by the irony of it all, our guy tells that idea of happiness to kick rocks, wishing both this world and his old one would just go to the dumpster. Clenching his fists tight, he tries to force himself to accept his new reality. After all, finding peace right now literally just meant checking out of this life and escaping all that misery. But deep down, he knows that's a massive lie. His will to live is way stronger. He absolutely refuses to end his story in a dump like this without ever building his precious family. Panting hard, Juin tries to glue the pieces of his shattered hope back together. Out of nowhere, a piece of bread is offered right to him. Looking up, he locks eyes with a stunning brunette woman who's looking at him super gently while holding a food basket. She hands over the snack, trying to say something in a language he still doesn't. Right then, a super cute little blonde girl shyly peeks from behind the woman's leg, gripping the cage bars. Totally frozen, the MC just stares at them, feeling like he's looking exactly at the wifey and kid he always dreamed of. Far away from there, the scene cuts to a tiny, rundown wooden cabin deep in the forest. Inside, the woman and the little girl are sitting at a table sharing a very basic meal. The little one chugs the broth from her bowl like an absolute champ. Being super caring, the woman slides another plate of food toward the girl, asking her to eat some more. Patting her already somewhat full tummy, the kid turns it down, admitting she's still hungry though. The woman tries to explain that's exactly why she needs to eat the rest of it. But the little girl points right back, dropping facts. If she's hungry, the lady named Lizzie must be starving too. Mind blown by that level of empathy, Lizzie is left speechless for a sec. Completely melting at the kid's sweetness, she agrees that they'll split it and eat together. Right after that, loud banging on the door ruins the chill vibe, with a dude outside announcing himself as the village elder. Lizzie jumps up in a panic and hugs the girl, while the old man outside yells that the council decided to hand over one of the prisoners brought by the soldiers to be her new husband. He makes it clear the final call is happening tomorrow, and after that, she'll have to hike up the mountains for good with the chosen guy. Before taking off, the guy orders her to prep food to welcome the troops at dawn, getting nothing but a quiet, submissive nod from her. As soon as his footsteps fade, Lizzie collapses on the floor, terrified by how fast this went down and dreading going back to a life of mistreatment. Trembling with panic, she hugs the little girl tight, knowing there's sadly no way to dodge this trap. Dark memories from her past bubble up, but she promises herself she would never leave that kid behind. The thought of leaving the little one all alone in the world was something she just couldn't accept, period. Noticing the woman's sadness, the kid's eyes start welling up with tears. Unable to handle the pressure, the little girl just loses it and starts bawling her eyes out. The sound of crying echoes through the dark cabin, while Lizzie tries everything to calm her down. Later on, with things finally under control, the woman just stands in the middle of the kitchen, terrified of what the future holds. Huddled in a corner, she admits to herself she really doesn't want to live through that nightmare again. With a super sad look, she stares at the bed across the room. The little girl is asleep, hugging a teddy bear, making Lizzie realize their fear of abandonment is probably exactly the same. We're talking about a kid who's only 5 years old, doesn't even have a name, and just lost her dad recently. Diving deep into her own memories, the woman remembers the day her own father traded her away for a simple rabbit pelt. On the very first day she stepped into that exact same cabin, before she even unpacked, she was met with pure brutality from the guy who was supposed to be her husband. The dude acted super violently just because she showed up a little later than they agreed. The shock of that toxic welcome made the young girl realize her miserable life was just getting started. Picking up the pieces of her own dignity from the floor, she cried tears of pain facing that harsh reality. Until in the middle of all that darkness, a tiny little hand gently touched her hair. Looking up, the still bruised girl was met with a totally unexpected presence. The house owner's daughter was looking at her with deep worry right in the middle of that mess. Without a second thought, the kid laid down on the freezing floor right next to her to keep her company. In that toxic environment, the only person who showed any real love was that little angel-like creature. Sometime later, the cruel guy hiked up the mountains and literally never came back, leaving the two of them alone in the cabin. According to village gossip, the dude met a wild end getting attacked by wolves in the hunting grounds. Hearing the news, Lizzie felt a massive wave of relief, which was instantly replaced by major anxiety. Worry took over her face as she tried to figure out how they were going to survive from then on. After all, the rules around there dictated that a woman without a husband was easy prey and had zero protection against any danger. Back in the present, the sun's up and the two are strolling peacefully toward the main entrance of the village. Super hyped, the little one tugs on the woman's skirt and points ahead, spotting something crazy. She points out, totally amazed, that there's a massive wagon parked right over there. Curious, they both walk up to the ride holding the newcomers. Lizzie walks over holding her bread basket, focused on getting the elder's order from last night done. Inside the cage, Juwon's eyes go wide, absolutely stunned to see those two walking up to his cell. Juwon's mind flashes back to just moments ago, when a seriously messed up scene played out right in front of him. One of the soldiers was being incredibly toxic to a prisoner, screaming that the guy was a useless piece of trash. The guard even mocked the situation, annoyed by the drama of those captives who barely even knew each other in the wagon. Looking at the little family huddled on the floor, the soldier whined that the sad scene totally ruined his appetite. Seeing those people suffering absolutely crushed our MC's heart. Snapping back to the present, Lizzie's gentle eyes are giving off major, genuine compassion for him. Without holding back, she grabs a few slices of bread from her rustic basket. Calmly, she holds the food out through the bars to help the guy who looked like he was starving. From Juwon's POV, that caring move was like a literal light at the end of the tunnel. Still gripping his rusty fork, he is completely mesmerized by the angelic vibe of those two. Their staring contest gets cut short when the village elder rolls up asking about the troops. The boss tells Lizzie to head straight back to the village, taking over the job of welcoming the soldiers from there. Nodding submissively, she calls the little girl and they start walking away together. As they leave, the kid looks back, feeling super bad for the prisoner left behind in the cage. Juwon just stays there alone holding the bread tight, his heart doing flips and his brain going a million miles an hour over that interaction. Still locked up, the guy chows down on the bread he was given. Out of nowhere, the soldiers rip the gate open aggressively, yelling at him to get out right now. With zero chill, our guy gets yanked and violently thrown out of the wagon. Face planted in the grass, his stomach growls super loud from the lack of any decent food. Right after, everyone is rounded up in a clearing, where the village elder announces the start of the whole process. Instantly, the guards rush the prisoners who are already on the ground, acting completely unhinged and rough. Major tension fills the air as the ropes tying the guy's hands get sliced off with knives. Next up, the soldiers use some sort of glowing magic on a bunch of paperwork, leaving our MC totally stunned by the unreal visual. Huddled on the ground, the guy lets out a tired sigh, wondering what kind of wacky universe he actually landed in. Just then, one of the guards walks up to the village boss to report something in a totally gibberish language. Kneeling nearby, Juwon watches their interaction like a hawk. Completely lost, he tries to decode whatever they're deciding about his future. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the tiny wooden cabin hidden deep in the woods. Out front, a massive sack of supplies gets dropped on the floor, with the boss mentioning the village is spotting them food for a bit. The old guy quickly adds that Lizzie's new husband doesn't speak their language, making it crystal clear she's gonna have to pay for all those groceries later. Trying to comfort her, an older lady from the village explains they only took the new guy in because they desperately needed a hunter. The neighbor mentions the soldiers reported the dude is probably a commoner, promising he'll be way different from her last husband. Breaking it down, the older lady points out that despite his rugged look, the guy's hands and feet are as delicate as a noble's. Holding Lizzie's hand sweetly, the woman tries to calm her down, insisting a guy with those features has probably never hurt a fly in his life. Letting out a sad sigh, the young girl replies super humbly that she doesn't even care about having a good life. Looking anxious, she admits her only real wish is that her new partner just isn't violent. Watching the little girl sleep soundly, the woman confesses she'd be totally fine if the guy just completely ignores them inside the house. Suddenly, aggressive pounding on the door cuts the chat short, with the elder's voice demanding they open up right now. Spooked by the sudden noise, Lizzie literally jumps back instantly. Not even waiting for a reply, the wooden door gets kicked wide open. The village boss steps inside, straight up announcing he brought the guy she's marrying. In total shock, the girl tries to process this while the old man barks at her to let the guy in. Walking slowly into the cabin, Juwon checks the place out, having absolutely zero clue where he ended up. Complaining about the heavy lifting, the elder grumbles about having to drag that sick-looking dude all the way up there. Huddled on the floor with the kid, Lizzie stares at the massive guy, internally screaming, wondering if that unit is actually her new husband. Shaking with fear, the young girl shrinks even smaller, terrified by the absurd height of this random dude. Spotting the two of them on the floor, the MC looks visibly shocked. Instantly, he realizes it's the exact same sweet woman who gave him the bread earlier. However, our guy gets super worried seeing how much she's literally shaking with fear in front of him. Out of patience, the elder rudely grabs his arm, yelling in the local language for him to stop standing there like a statue. Yanking the ex-prisoner super aggressively, the old man drags the guy into the middle of the room. With a heavy shove to the back, the village boss pushes Juin right toward the terrified girl. Acting like a total brute, the man grabs the newcomer's wrist and also snatches Lizzie's hand with zero gentleness. Forcing them to touch, the old guy shoves their hands together like it's a done deal. Looking way too proud of himself, the elder backs off, declaring that now they finally look like a real couple. Completely lost in all that tension, Juin tries to connect the dots to grasp how serious this actually is. Right then, the image of that creepy Santa flashes in his mind, reminding him of the promise to find him a pure-hearted wife and an awesome daughter. Looking closely at the girl, he can totally see the bunny-like wifey he asked for so badly. And looking at the little blonde girl, the image of a cute mongoose daughter matches up crazy well. Standing right in front of the family he just scored, our guy finally realizes that crazy old man actually kept his word. Staring at the two fragile figures in front of him, he acknowledges that his biggest dream just came true. But remembering all the toxic garbage he went through in the wagon, he wonders why he had to get dropped into such a hardcore world. Pure rage fills his heart thinking the gift could have been delivered without all the literal torture attached. Giving off a dark, villainous aura, Juin swears to himself he'll end that Santa if he ever crosses paths with him again. While the husband is silently boiling with rage, the new wife and stepdaughter are shaking and hugging in the corner, scared to death of his terrifying expression. A bit later, the scene jumps to a forest, where our MC is tagging along with some village hunters. Walking right behind the squad, he admits he's going a bit crazy because he can't understand a single word these dudes are saying. Right then, one of the younger hunters walks up acting super sketchy. The local holds his hand out to the newcomer, making Juin think it's just a standard handshake. As soon as they touch, the hunter squeezes the guy's fingers with everything he's got, trying to flex and intimidate him. Feeling the insane pressure, the MC just stares at the dude, wondering if being a toxic jerk is just how they say hello around here. Squinting suspiciously, he quickly clocks the genuinely malicious intent behind the move. Deciding to clap back, the foreigner crushes the guy's hand with god-tier strength, making the villager scream in pure agony instantly. The guy drops to his knees crying from the pain, leaving the other locals totally shook by the newcomer's raw strength. Panicking at the scene, one of the older hunters raises his bow, screaming some aggressive command at the MC. Not getting the reaction, the MC just watches as the bow is shoved into his hands pretty abruptly. Holding the weapon, he reads the room, figuring out the guys aren't actually trying to jump him. Hyped up, the hunters point frantically at a nearby bush, hyping up a potential target. Hiding in the leaves, a tiny white rabbit is just chilling, completely clueless about the danger. The puzzle pieces finally click for Juin, realizing the squad's real goal was to drag him out there to test his hunting skills. Surprised by the move, he gets that these guys want him to prove his worth right on the spot. Pressuring the new guy, the villagers keep gesturing for him to just shoot the animal already. The tiny fluffy target stays frozen, innocently munching on some leaves. Getting into stance, our guy preps for the shot, even though his nerves are maxed out since he's literally never held a bow in his life. Struggling hard to pull the string back, he remembers how tricky this sport is even for the pros, heavily doubting he'll snipe something so small. Locking in with laser focus, Juin tenses his muscles and readies the shot with all his might. Letting the string fly, the arrow completely whiffs, missing the little guy by a mile, only scaring it with the wind's hum. A massive, thunderous boom echoes right after, leaving the villagers paralyzed while our MC stands there confused about how he missed so badly. The whole squad's eyes bulge out, totally blown away by the absolute crater the arrow left in the tree behind the target. Hours later, Juin heads home hauling all the gear, getting a super anxious welcome from Lizzie and the little girl at the village entrance. Seeing how nervous they both look, Juin is caught totally off guard by the vibe. Standing there with his gear, the guy stays quiet, trying to process the reunion. Watching the woman walk toward him with the kid, he acknowledges that this is literally his fiancée. His heart races in his chest looking at such a pure, wholesome sight. The memory of the villagers' shock at his raw strength flashes through his mind while his family waits. Shortly after, the three of them chill on the forest floor on a makeshift blanket to share a quiet meal. Starving, the guy starts slurping down the rustic soup he was served. The hot meal brings some solid comfort in the middle of this alien world. Demolishing the food in record time, he barely notices that Lizzie and the kid are just watching him in silence. The second he finishes, Juin holds out the empty bowl asking for seconds, which actually ends up scaring the young girl. Seeing her flinch, he just looks at her super calmly. Slowly, a much softer expression takes over our MC's face. In his head, he admits that the whole concept of family always felt super alien to him, from his teens right up to hitting 30. But now, watching the girl and the kid eat, he realizes this massive gift was handed to a guy just like him. The ex-prisoner admits it would have been way better if things happened naturally, but considering everything he went through, The order of events doesn't even matter. Looking up at the sky, he feels a massive urge to end that crazy Santa for throwing him in here, but at the same time, he's feeling something entirely different. Then the guy drops a loud, genuine thank you for the family he was given. The next day, the small squad hits the forest dirt road walking at a seriously fast pace. Carrying a massive bag on his back, Juin looks back, worried if the two of them are even managing to keep up. Right behind him, Lizzie and the little girl are holding hands, breathing super heavy from exhaustion. The foreigner finds the whole thing incredibly frustrating, since the language barrier stops him from even asking if they're okay. With that struggle in mind, he realizes he needs to speedrun adapting to this new world. Suddenly, he stops walking and plants his feet firmly on the dirt road. In that split second, an old memory of his mom talking to him in the snow pops up. She taught him that the exact moment you feel the need to protect someone, you should step up and act immediately. Hyped up by the memory, the guy decides to stop wasting time and makes a move. He turns around and walks right back toward them, making the two step back, totally spooked by the sudden approach. The little girl starts whimpering quietly, scared out of her mind by the giant dude. Super carefully, the MC kneels down near them and warns them he's going to hold them for a sec, asking them not to freak out. Not understanding a word, Lizzie goes ghost pale, completely in shock as he gets closer. Trying to diffuse the tension, Juin takes a shot at saying a few words in their local language, which just makes the girl even more confused. The kid finally loses it and lets out a terrified scream at the big guy. Seeing her cry, the guy figures he shouldn't even keep a neutral face, feeling bad for causing a panic just by stepping closer. Out of nowhere, he politely excuses himself and reaches his hands out to the small group. In one smooth, agile move, he lifts both the young woman and the girl off the ground at the same time, catching them completely off guard. Lizzie lets out a panicked gasp, realizing she's literally dangling in the arms of this massive dude. Keeping a rock-solid posture, the guy makes sure both of them are super secure while he shifts the heavy load on his back. With his feet planted firmly in the dirt, the foreigner holds his new family with crazy ease. Tucked under his arm, the little girl's eyes go wide, absolutely amazed by the wild ride. The mom rests her head on the guy's shoulder, still trying to buffer what just happened. Juin tells them to hold on tight, keeping his face totally chill and focused on the path ahead. While speedwalking, he notices that even with all the luggage and holding them both, the weight feels way too light, which actually gets him worried. The MC decides he has to master the language and become a pro hunter ASAP, so he can keep his family fed with a ton of meat. Because of that, he knows for a fact his schedule is gonna be packed from here on out. Wrapped up in that protective bubble, Lizzie relaxes her body and softly rests her face against her husband's chest. She grips his clothes super tight, actually finding a little comfort in that crazy trip. She keeps her eyes down, just letting herself be carried without putting up a fight. Minutes later, the trio finally makes it to the remote part of the village, walking down the dirt trail. The village elder points at a cabin that's literally falling apart, getting a polite thanks from the foreigner for playing tour guide. Wasting zero time, the old man turns his back and bounces, leaving the new family standing there. Scanning the sketchy wooden setup, Juin figures this new house is going to be even colder than the tiny room he rented back in the city. A chill runs down his spine. He always hated the cold, and now he has a massive reason to despise the freezing weather. Ready to face the music, he pushes the heavy wooden door open to check out the inside of their new crib. The guy lets out a confused sound the second he looks into the dark, empty room. Next to him, Lizzie's eyes bug out, completely traumatized by the state of the place. Intrigued when she suddenly starts crying, he turns around and asks what's causing the waterworks. Unable to even form a response, the young girl just turns around and full-on sprints into the forest. Our MC looks back inside the shack trying to piece together what caused that level of panic. Standing in the middle of the sunlit room, he's just completely lost in the sauce. Checking the corners, it finally clicks. The locals straight up robbed all their furniture and tools while he was busy in the village. Far away from there, Juin sits on the forest floor feeling the heavy reality check, knowing it's gonna get freezing and he has zero way to fix up the house. A bit later, Lizzie shyly walks up and he warmly drops a "finally found you." The guy sits on the grass right next to her, trying to radiate some peace in the middle of all that chaos. Super gently, the MC reaches out and starts petting his wife's head. The unexpected sweet touch surprises the girl, who still has a super sad and exhausted look in her eyes. Juin tells her not to stress about anything. Even knowing the language barrier means she doesn't actually understand the words. Staring right at the foreigner, Lizzie thinks about having to live with him, trying to guess if he's telling her to chill. The young girl feels a wave of pure panic because she can't even communicate properly with a guy who doesn't even know how to hunt. She highly doubts they'll survive in such a brutal, unforgiving place with literally zero money. Despite the heavy mood, Juin gives off major confidence with his calm, friendly eyes. With a solid and super loving tone, he swears he's going to protect her, while the girl is just suffocating in her own anxiety. Slowly, she looks up at her husband, feeling the comforting warmth of that unspoken promise. A single tear rolls down her face, finally breaking all the tension built up in her chest. Sitting together in the sunlight, the couple shares a rare, peaceful moment in that chaotic and violent world. A teardrop hits the dirt as Lizzie wonders to herself why, after all the recent terror, she's feeling such massive relief in her heart. Lost in thought, Juin remembers how in his original world he was a total loner ever since his parents passed away. Even being completely solo, he had to grind super hard just to survive in his own way. Holding the girl in his arms, the guy realizes he finally has a squad now, and there's zero reason to quit. Locked in, he guarantees he'll do whatever it takes to provide for both of them from now on. Hearing those comforting words, Lizzie cries tears of joy right in his arms. Out of nowhere, the little girl comes running and looking absolutely furious, ready to defend her mom. The kid screams in a panic, demanding the newcomer stop bullying the girl. Using all her tiny strength, she shoves our MC away, trying to build a wall between them. Pushed back, Juin just watches the kid white knighting the woman in the middle of the woods. The guy tries to buffer the surreal situation of having a woman crying in his arms just a second ago. Not to mention the little girl crying right next to them, making this whole dynamic incredibly new for him. A million thoughts crash into his brain as he watches the whole scene play out. Intrigued, he wonders whose kid this actually is and what made the young woman help him earlier. But our guy is absolutely certain that if they just keep living together, they'll build a solid family over time. Full of conviction, Juin swears to himself he'll be a top-tier husband and dad, ensuring they stay happy. He also promises that neither of them will ever regret being part of his life. Later on, the small group heads back to the busted, remote cabin they now call home. Inside the wooden shack, the trio sits on the floor, keeping their distance because things are still a bit awkward. Frustrated, the guy feels like all the progress they made in the woods just evaporated, and they're back to square one. Even so, he's relieved to see they're just being cautious instead of straight-up terrified, but he has no clue how to break the ice. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in our MC's head with a simple fix for the awkward silence. No stalling, he just slides a little closer to the two of them. Pointing at his own chest, the guy says his name loud and clear to introduce himself. After all, he figures that even with the language block, knowing each other's names is the bare minimum for roommates. Super calmly, the foreigner repeats the pronunciation nice and slow so they catch on. Then he holds his hand out to the young girl, gesturing for her to drop her name too. Looking a bit hesitant, the girl finally mutters what she's called. She reveals her name is Lizzie, keeping her eyes glued to the floor. Hyped about getting a response, Juin compliments the name, making his wifey feel pretty flattered. Right after, he points to the little kid huddled up and asks for her name. The woman stays totally quiet and the vibe gets instantly weird. Seeing the kid's sad reaction, the MC instantly pieces together that the little one hasn't even been named yet. Touched by that, Juin thinks about the incredibly rough life that little girl must have dragged herself through to get here. With Major Dad energy, he pats the kid's head and announces he's going to pick out a name for her. Thinking about a bright future, the name Dorothy pops right into his head. The pick comes from the magical story where a little girl goes on epic adventures and makes unforgettable friends. Deep down, he hopes with all his heart that his stepdaughter grows up surrounded by joy and paves her own path. Looking her right in the eyes, Juin says the chosen name, crossing his fingers that it brings good vibes to the kid's life. The little one practically explodes with happiness repeating the word, claiming her new identity on the spot. The next day we cut to the yard, where our MC is chopping firewood with absolutely ridiculous strength. Hiding behind a tree, Lizzie watches him work, totally convinced the guy is a walking mystery. She clocks that he's way stronger than her late husband, but is blown away that she only gets affection instead of toxic behavior. Confused by all the kindness, the girl concludes he doesn't match the vibe of anyone from that brutal village. The memory of his soft voice introducing himself replays in her head, bringing her some serious comfort. Only used to suffering and abuse from her past, she realizes she's never actually been treated like a human being before. Watching the foreigner, Lizzie wonders why all this kindness is being aimed right at her. Super curious, she is 100% sure the guy doesn't belong in this forgotten dump. Just then, Juin spots his wife and gives a friendly wave, calling out her name. As he walks over, the girl zeroes in on her husband's dark hair and deep eyes. Right then, an old rumor about the enemy nation summoning a hero from another world crosses her mind. According to the lore, the summoned savior rocked the exact same look as this foreigner. Taking big strides, our MC closes the gap, interrupting her whole thought process. Staring at his face up close, she confirms the similarities to the legend are actually kind of spooky. But the girl shakes her head, deciding a legendary figure would literally never live off the grid on a mountain like this. Plus, she remembers that whole thing was probably just fake news spread by the villagers anyway. Taking advantage of being close, Juin reaches out and gives his wife some sweet head pats. In the sunlight, she notices his features actually lean more toward brown than black. Relieved by the fact check, Lizzie chills out, realizing he's just a huge, gentle dude. But then she gets hit with a wave of confusion, not understanding why she cares so much about a guy she literally just met. Clueless about his wife's internal monologue, the guy just watches, finding it pretty funny how spaced out she looks. Keeping the vibe super light, the foreigner just keeps petting her hair like it's the most natural thing ever. Totally frozen, the young girl admits to herself she's 0% used to this kind of affection. Bad memories flood back fast, reminding her that a guy getting close always ended in violence in the past. Her husband's soft touch completely shatters that painful expectation. Pushing her fears aside, she soaks in the affection and silently hopes he doesn't stop anytime soon. Slowly, Lizzie just melts into the comforting touch and relaxes her posture next to him. Caught off guard by her suddenly getting closer, the MC gets visibly flustered. The young girl slowly opens her eyes, looking at her husband looking super vulnerable. Caught up in the vibe, their faces naturally lean in together on pure impulse. With zero pushback from either side, they finally share a soft kiss right in the middle of the woods. The reality check hits the foreigner instantly, leaving him shook and incredibly nervous about his own bold move. Like they just got electrocuted, the couple freezes on the spot, both completely dying of embarrassment. Super awkward, our MC looks away and tries to mumble some kind of apology to cut the tension. Trying to escape the cringe, he steps back to grab his tools and get back to the chores he dropped. Gripping the wooden bucket tight, the guy tries to process how fast his heart is hammering. To run away from the ultra-awkward vibe, Juin clumsily sprints off into the forest, lugging the wooden bucket with him. Lizzie is left behind, totally shocked by the sudden dash, clutching her hands to her chest as she tries to load what just happened. Walking tensely through the trees, our MC mutters to himself that he's lost his mind and wonders what his wife must be thinking of him right now. Frustrated with his own impulse control, he rests his head against a tree, remembering that even though they're married, they literally met today. The guy turns around and runs a hand through his hair, feeling the massive headache of not even being able to communicate with her properly. Clueless on how to play dumb about it, he stops walking for a sec. Looking around the increasingly dark woods, the foreigner tries to figure out how far he walked and where the heck he is. The thick, enclosed forest vibe really isn't helping him navigate, leaving a super heavy atmosphere in the air. He decides to just grab the water as fast as possible and head home without overthinking it. But a sudden noise grabs his attention, making the guy snap his head around on high alert. Right in front of him, a massive, terrifying beast blocks the path, staring down our MC with glowing red eyes. The scary animal bares its giant fangs, looking ready to launch an attack at any given second. Dropping a deep, menacing growl, the creature forces the guy to take a step back and get into a defensive stance. Staring down that colossal monster blocking his way, Juin tries to gaslight himself into believing it's really just a wolf. Clocking the extreme danger level, he slowly crouches down without making any sudden moves. Super carefully, the foreigner grabs a thick fallen branch to use as a makeshift weapon. Wasting zero time, the giant wolf lunges ferociously right at him. With crazy fast reflexes, the guy raises the wood to block the beast's bite. Using all his strength, Juin shoves the animal away while screaming, trying to shake off the attack. But the creature is relentless, forcing our MC to back up under massive pressure. The beast's crushing weight makes the guy's defensive stance buckle a bit. Refusing to take an L right there, he channels all his courage and shoves the giant animal again. The effort is insane, making the guy yell as he tries to keep the beast's claws away. Unfortunately, the wolf breaks through his guard and trashes his arm pretty aggressively. Extreme pain floods Juin's body, feeling like his arm is literally on fire. Totally panicking from the agonizing injury, the guy loses his cool. In the middle of this chaos, something crazy happens and the creature suddenly backs off. An intense, mysterious flame bursts out of nowhere, totally wrapping around our MC's injured arm. The wolf takes the hit from the magical heat and retreats, letting out a panicked noise. With his arm still blazing, the guy manages to put some distance between them, forcing the beast to back up from the fire. The fire mercilessly consumes the animal, making the beast thrash around until it drops dead on the forest floor. The creature goes limp, and smoke starts rising from its defeated body. Completely wiped out, Juin collapses on the grass, trying to catch his breath after that insanely sketchy fight. He lifts his arm slowly, remembering crystal clear that the whole area was covered in flames just a second ago. To his shock, the foreigner notices there's absolutely no burn marks on his skin or his clothes. Piecing the bizarre situation together, he concludes he just triggered magic on pure instinct. The guy remembers that getting ice-guide and unlocking powers is a super classic trope in the fantasy novels he read. Hyped about the possibility, he holds his hand out, wanting to test that theory in real life. Locked in, Juin yells the command to launch a fireball at the trees. Literally nothing happens, and he tries spamming the exact same spell over and over. Frustrated by the massive fail, he switches strats and tries to summon a firestorm or a wall of flames. Lying on the ground, the guy keeps testing out epic names like Dragon's Breath and Earth Spirit Summons with zero luck. Sitting up looking super bored, he realizes he can't control the power, but is hyped to see his battle wounds healed up completely on their own. The foreigner figures that if he can master this skill later, he'll easily be able to support his family working as a hunter. A wholesome image pops into his head, imagining giving them a super safe spot and tons of food to keep the two of them happy. Thinking about the future, the guy promises to use this magic to heal injuries, since there are 0 doctors in that middle-of-nowhere village. He gets up and dusts off his clothes, trying to stay chill about everything that just went down. A bitter memory creeps up, taking him back to his lonely time right after his parents passed away. The flashback shows that even his grandpa, who adopted him and was totally healthy, ended up passing in a stupid accident. Back then, his relatives treated the kid like absolute garbage during the family funeral. The family members pointed fingers with zero chill, blaming the kid for the tragedies that happened. Looking down, the boy silently listened to them call him a curse that only brought disaster wherever he went. Snapping back to reality in the forest, Juin takes a deep breath trying to push away those dark, toxic memories. Focused on the present, he decides the smartest play is to skin the down beast right there before other predators catch the scent. After the heavy lifting, the foreigner throws the massive wolf carcass over his shoulders to haul it all home before it gets dark. Carrying that ridiculous weight, he remembers the chickens his grandpa used to raise and realizes that life experience actually came in clutch right now. Night falls as he walks steadily down the trail, wishing his grandpa could see him crushing these challenges like a boss. On the way back, the guy keeps making hand signs with his free hand, still trying to figure out how to grind his mysterious fire magic. Arriving at the rustic cabin, he walks into a cozy vibe where his wife and stepdaughter are cooking dinner by the fire. Little Dorothy runs up to him totally hyped, holding a bowl of food to welcome him back. Melting at the sweet gesture, Juin gives the little girl some gentle head pats to say thanks. The kid beams with happiness from the affection and runs back to her mom, living her best life. Chilling near the entrance, Dorothy peeks curiously out the dark wooden door, wanting to see what's outside. Suddenly, her eyes bug out as she spots some sketchy movement coming toward the cabin in the dark. A gigantic wolf head pops up at the door, making the kid let out an ear-piercing scream of pure terror. The little girl goes into full panic mode, crying and screaming nonstop at the terrifying beast invading their home. Hearing her daughter freaking out, Lizzie instantly grabs a kitchen knife, her heart going a million miles an hour. Driven by pure mom instincts, the young woman rushes toward the door to shield the kid from the threat. The girl's eyes are wide with terror, ready to throw down with whatever was trying to jump her family. But the tension shatters instantly when the foreigner walks in holding the heavy animal carcass on his shoulders. Spooked by the screaming, the husband unceremoniously dumps the downed creature on the floor by the door. Lizzie stops dead in her tracks, gripping the knife, completely in shock at the wild sight of the guy carrying that massive beast. Juin reaches out to them, calling their names in a desperate attempt to get everybody to chill out. Realizing the animal was already cooked and the danger was over, the young girl freezes, panting heavily. A massive wave of relief hits Lizzie, who drops the knife in the grass as she tries to recover from the ultimate jump scare. Juin quickly catches Lizzie right after the panic fades, promising that the injuries he took are no big deal. Clinging to the big guy's leg, little Dorothy mumbles quietly, just glad he made it back from the woods in one piece. Our MC explains he just got a tiny scratch on his arm during the boss fight and is already feeling 100. Under the moonlight, he reassures his new family that there's zero reason to freak out. Overcome with emotion, the young girl hugs her husband super tight and lets out a heavy sigh of pure relief. Hearing her repeat the same phrase on a loop, Juin guesses she's just thanking him for being safe. The little girl is also crying while grabbing his clothes, showing just how terrified she was by the massive scare. Hearing them both sounding so teary, the guy feels awful inside for breaking his promise about not making them cry on literally day one. The next morning, the vibe is way more chill and bright around the tiny rustic wooden cabin. The foreigner wakes up early and starts chopping up the huge animal carcass on a table outside. Locked in on the grind, he uses the blade with crazy precision to sort out the usable meat. Wiping the sweat off his face, the guy admits the work takes way longer in real life than when he watched his grandpa do it. Wiped out from the physical labor, he decides he's gonna have to find a better hack to prep supplies in the future. Not wasting any time, our MC focuses on finishing this heavy chore fast so he can get ahead on house stuff. Just then, a familiar silhouette pops up in the doorway, grabbing his full attention. Turning his head totally surprised, Juin sees his wife stepping outside. The young girl hurries over to him carrying an empty, rustic wooden bucket. She drops the container on the ground nearby, signaling that he can stash the cut meat inside. Watching her gestures, the guy catches on quick that she's trying to make storing the food easier. Trying to be polite, he searches his brain for the exact word to say thanks in the local language. A bit awkwardly, the foreigner drops a clumsy thank you in her native tongue. Hearing her husband's genuine attempt, Lizzie looks visibly moved by the super respectful move. Caught off guard by her sweet reaction, the big guy gets nervous, thinking he accidentally said something stupid. But the young girl just points to herself and repeats the word gently, proving she got the message perfectly. Relieved by that, our MC takes a step toward his partner. With a super warm look, he repeats the thank you with way more confidence in his pronunciation. Feeling shy from him suddenly stepping closer, the girl mumbles that it was nothing, setting up a super chill vibe between them. Staring at his wife, Juin realizes he literally never got a genuine thank you from anyone in his past life. While picking up the bucket, Lizzie thinks about how this guy does these massive things but still appreciates her smallest gestures. The guy feels his heart melt, admitting that being around this woman brings him amazing, totally new experiences. The memory of their intimate moment from earlier makes the young girl's face burn with pure embarrassment. Walking back to the cabin, she can't shake off her massive curiosity about that wild moment. She silently wonders if her husband was ever this affectionate with other people before they met. Confused by her own feelings, she feels a tightness in her chest that's totally new and honestly pretty scary. Meanwhile, Juin lifts the heavy bucket like it's nothing to carry it all inside. Noticing the heavy lifting, Lizzie tries to grab the container with him, since she was used to doing all the grunt work by herself in the past. But our MC pulls the load toward himself super gently, taking over the job like it's the most normal thing in the world. A sudden lock of eyes leaves them both frozen for a quick sec right at the cabin entrance. Noticing the guy leaning in slightly, the girl's heart starts racing with crazy anxiety. Totally flustered, she shuts her eyes tight, waiting for whatever happens next. The foreigner leans his body toward her in a super calm, smooth motion. With a lot of affection, he drops a simple kiss right on his new partner's forehead. The second she realizes where the kiss landed, Lizzie short-circuits and mentally beats herself up for expecting something more. Surprised by her getting all jumpy, the guy just stands there holding the bucket, not knowing how to react. Dying of embarrassment, the young girl internally panics, convinced she made her hidden agenda way too obvious in front of him. Catching onto her nerves, Juin decides to make a move and closes the gap between them one more time. Determined not to panic again, the girl keeps her eyes wide open to see what he's going to do. Driven by pure affection, our MC locks lips with her in a genuinely sweet kiss. The couple pulls away slowly, sharing a long look packed with major tenderness and connection. Getting back to his chores with the bucket, the guy suddenly spots someone hiding nearby. Little Dorothy is spying on the whole thing from behind the wooden wall, proving she watched the whole scene play out. Unable to handle the embarrassment of getting caught in 4K by her daughter, the mom just takes off running. A bit later, Juin is walking down the forest trail with the little girl tagging along. The kid follows the big guy's steps at a super chill pace under the shade of the massive trees. Enjoying the quiet walk, our MC looks genuinely happy and thanks her for keeping him company. Noticing the kid stopped out of nowhere, he figures he forgot to use her new name. Fixing the slip-up real quick, the foreigner says thanks again, calling the little one by her chosen name. Hearing her own identity makes the kid's face literally light up with happiness right there. Back at the shack, the guy watches his wife treating the massive animal pelt and thinks it's weird she's doing it indoors. Sitting on the rustic floor, he watches her detail-oriented work with extreme curiosity. Out of nowhere, a massive light bulb goes off in the foreigner's head about the whole situation. He realizes that thick pelt is insanely valuable gear for keeping the family warm in the brutal mountain cold. The little girl walks up to her mom, super interested in the huge, furry new item. With zero fear, the kid literally belly flops onto the downed beast's head, thinking it's the ultimate playground. Seeing her daughter living her best life, the young mom cracks up at the kid's hype. Watching the wholesome scene, our MC feels insanely proud to have delivered this piece to both of them. The day stays super chill and sunny around that humble house in the middle of nowhere. Inside, the hard grind continues, focused on prepping the food to keep the family fed. Watching her every move, the guy decides to learn the meat curing process so he can take over this heavy chore later. He notices how hyped the girl got seeing the separated fat, relieved he trusted his gut and didn't just throw that part away. Deep in thought, Juin realizes he still has a whole universe of trading rules and survival strats to master. Staring right at the creature's pelt, the urge to speedrun learning everything and become the perfect provider hits him hard. Deciding not to waste any more time, the big guy jumps up to get back to the grunt work. The sudden jump scares his wife, who pauses the curing process instantly. Finding her jump scare funny, the guy jokes around asking if she'd rather he just sit there keeping her company. Juin tells his wife he's totally fine, swearing he rested enough and isn't feeling any pain anymore. Calming them both down, the foreigner promises not to overdo it and tells them to chill. Lizzie watches her husband walk out in total silence, still feeling a bit anxious in her chest. Out in the woods, our MC checks out the nearby trees and decides they're the perfect size to practice chopping firewood. He remembers hearing that oak makes a solid campfire, but admits he has absolutely no clue how to spot that specific wood. With that in mind, the guy decides to just rely on raw brute force, since he's literally never chopped a tree in his life. Winding up for the hit, Juin swings the axe and nails the trunk with absurd power. The violent impact buries the tool's blade deep into the thick wood. But the axe handle can't handle the massive shockwave and snaps clean in half instantly. Completely frozen, the big guy just stares at the broken piece in his hand, feeling the weight of his own clumsiness. Time flies and the sun soon starts setting, lighting up the tiny, remote cabin in the woods. Coming back from his lumberjack grind, the foreigner pushes the wooden door and walks in carrying his gear. The young girl and the kid welcome him with major attention, super happy to see him back safe and sound. Wasting no time, the wife runs up to him and grabs his hand in a burst of pure relief. Moving too fast, Lizzie trips on herself and drops to her knees on the floor, leaving our MC totally confused. Kneeling right in front of her, Juin holds her hands super gently while the girl rushes to say she's not hurt. Looking at his wife with pure sweetness, the guy drops a genuine thank you for her constant worrying. Right after, little Dorothy comes sprinting through the living room looking super hyped. The kid dunks a clean cloth into a water basin, showing she also wants to help take care of the foreigner. Holding the soaking wet rag, the kid rushes back toward the couple. In her rush, the little girl trips and crashes right into the big guy, dropping the drenched cloth straight onto him. Caught off guard by the sudden splash, our MC gets his shirt soaked and just sits there trying to process what happened. Trying to fix her daughter's mess, Lizzie frantically starts drying her husband's clothes, stressing out. The kid instantly realizes the chaos she caused and looks at the foreigner terrified, dreading a massive scolding. But instead of raging, Juin gives the little one some head pats and thanks her for the sweet intention of trying to help. They both keep scrubbing his wet clothes non-stop, making the guy ask them, a bit awkwardly, to cancel the cleaning session right there. Managing to dodge all that intense pampering, he admits to himself that living this whole situation feels like a literal dream. The guy reflects that up until a few days ago, he never imagined experiencing such a simple, genuine joy like this. With a full heart, he swears to himself he'll do whatever it takes to keep those two smiling forever. Night finally takes over the isolated forest, dropping a super chill vibe over the new family's humble home. Outside the cabin, massive chunks of meat are slowly drying near the fire, locking in their meals for the next few days. Safe from the freezing night, the trio gathers around the tiny wooden table to share a super comforting dinner. While eating, our MC enjoys the hot food, watching his wife eat with a super peaceful vibe. Wiped out after a long day, little Dorothy ends up passing out right there at the rustic table. Spotting the adorable scene, the couple shares a sweet look, finding the kid's exhaustion pretty funny. Being super gentle, the big guy stands up and scoops the sleeping kid into his arms so he doesn't wake her up. Holding his stepdaughter securely, he gets ready to carry her to the sleeping area in the back of the shack. Taking short steps, the guy walks over to the warmest spot in the house, right next to the lit fireplace. Juin tucks the little girl under the thick blanket super carefully, making sure she's totally safe from the freezing weather. Absolute silence takes over the neighborhood under the faint light shining outside. Meanwhile, Lizzie organizes the heavy bowls from dinner, totally zoned in on the final chore of the day. Finishing up, the young girl wipes down the containers and notices her husband standing right behind her, acting a bit shy. Making a sudden move, the foreigner reaches out and grabs his wife's wrist incredibly gently. Caught totally off guard by the soft touch, the young girl's cheeks burn up instantly. Our MC stares right at her, trying to broadcast his feelings through his eyes in the middle of that awkward silence. Through the wooden window, you can see the couple standing super close, building up major tension in that small room. Breaking the personal space barrier, the guy pulls his partner into a solid, super comforting. Getting ready to crash right after, Juin starts taking off his shirt like it's no big deal. Dying of embarrassment, Lizzie tries to gaslight herself into dropping this silly shyness. After all, she seriously believes that showing this kind of intimacy is exactly what a village wife is supposed to do. Mustering up all her courage, the girl reaches out with shaky hands and starts helping the big guy undress. The foreigner lets his partner take the wheel in total silence, just watching how nervous she's acting. A proud smile takes over our MC's face, feeling super valued by her genuine effort. But her courage runs out fast, and Lizzie steps back panicking, admitting she's still way too awkward for this stuff. Instantly, the guy grabs her hand sweetly to stop her from running away. Pulling her back, he gives off massive safety vibes, leaving his wife frozen in surprise in the middle of the room. Keeping the vibe chill, Juin suggests in a soft, comforting voice that they should just lay down and get some sleep. Slowly, the lights in the tiny house go out, leaving the whole place swallowed by the pitch-black forest. Chilling on the rustic floor, the couple lays side by side, sharing the space under the faint glow of a lantern. Their eyes lock for a quick second, showing off a strong, unspoken connection between them. Showing major care, the big guy pulls her clothes and adjusts the blanket over her to block out the freezing cold. Wrapped in her husband's body heat, the young girl blushes slightly and cracks a small smile of pure peace. Finally relaxed, they both close their eyes and pass out super close to each other. Feeling how fragile his wife is, the foreigner silently admires how incredibly soft she feels. Looking at the little girl sleeping right next to them, the guy realizes he's not daydreaming anymore. A massive protective instinct kicks in, begging the universe that this new family never checks out of this world before he does. The image of the crazy old Santa guy pops into his head like a genuine prayer. Juin asks that they never take these two out of his life, promising to keep them safe until the day he drops. In his head, rich nobles with their massive castles could never understand the real value of this. But in the harsh reality of humble families, it's completely normal for parents and kids to spend their whole lives sharing one cramped space. While she sleeps, Lizzie's mind drifts to the past, remembering that a kid always knows when the adults are acting toxic. A dark childhood memory surfaces, showing her own dad acting insanely aggressive and treating her mom like garbage late at night. Huddled under the covers back then, the little girl listened to her mom's muffled pain echoing through the night. The darkness of that trauma reminds the grown-up girl of the constant terror she always carried because of the miserable environment she was raised in. She always dreaded that this painful cycle would repeat for her, never having a shred of hope for peace until today. Lying peacefully on the big guy's chest, Lizzie feels massive relief, admitting to herself she never imagined nights between a husband and wife could actually be this sweet. The young girl acknowledges her whole universe flipped the second she met this incredibly gentle dude. Suddenly, the guy shifts a bit in his sleep, letting out a mumble that breaks the silence. The sudden move scares the girl, leaving her completely frozen in surprise on the bed. Blushing hard, she shuts her eyes, feeling her heart hammering so fast it might actually jump out. A warm feeling fills her chest, making her wish this peaceful vibe would literally last forever. The next morning, sunlight spills through the window as Juin wakes up hugging little Dorothy, noticing some movement outside the room. Super carefully, our MC gets up slow so he doesn't wake the kid, throwing the thick blanket over his stepdaughter. He gently pets the kid's blonde hair and she just mumbles quietly, enjoying her deep sleep. Meanwhile, his wife is walking through the kitchen lugging a heavy wooden bucket. Just then, the foreigner steps up fast and grabs the bucket handle out of nowhere. Spooked by the ninja move, Lizzie has no clue what's happening as her husband easily takes over the heavy lifting. In one quick, energetic move, the guy dumps all the dirty water out. Turning to his partner, he tries to be friendly using a word from the local language. Confused by his weird pronunciation, the young girl just murmurs, trying to guess what he meant. Using the new word he learned, our MC asks if she slept okay, calling her darling and noticing her face go completely tomato red. Lizzie nods yes, making the guy figure out her reaction was definitely because of the pet name. Instantly, the foreigner connects the dots that the term probably means something like wife or babe in this world. Trying to backpedal, he asks what he should actually call her, suggesting he just use her name. But the young girl blushes even harder and shyly asks him to keep using the sweet nickname, making the big guy realize what's up. Taking advantage of the moment, Juin repeats the cute nickname out loud, leaving his wife dying of embarrassment as she covers her face. Wanting the ground to swallow her, the girl turns around to hide how incredibly shy she is. Finding her reaction insanely cute, the husband admits to himself he really wants to keep teasing her. He gently taps her shoulder and asks her to look at him. Right then, little Dorothy wakes up with a jump, completely ruining the couple's moment. Still half asleep, the little girl hallucinates a giant piece of meat floating right in front of her. Driven by morning hunger, the kid crawls super fast to get out of the warm bed. With her little arms wide open, the kid runs through the house while her stepdad calls her name sounding hyped. But the little one totally ignores the couple, zooming right past them full of energy. With her eyes sparkling with joy, Dorothy screams euphorically, 100 focused on food. The couple watches the scene cracking up, while the little girl stumbles her way over to the food bucket. Hyped, the kid slams on the edge of the wooden bucket, demanding her favorite meal with zero chill. Diving headfirst, Dorothy tries to reach the meat inside with some seriously adorable effort. Laughing genuinely, our MC realizes he's gonna have to grind twice as hard hunting to keep up with this kid's appetite. Later on, the foreigner is walking solo through the thick forest, feeling ready to throw down with another beast if he has to. Gripping his new axe, he feels way more confident actually bringing a real weapon this time. The big guy steps heavily on the grass, focused on scouting the mountain area. But the vibe suddenly shifts, grabbing the guy's attention because it got way too quiet. Looking around, Juin finds the heavy atmosphere taking over the place pretty sketchy. Gripping the axe handle tight, he admits he's feeling suffocated even while standing in a massive forest. With his senses maxed out, our MC wonders what kind of freakish monster is going to pull up this time. Calm footsteps echo through the bushes, showing someone is slowly walking up. Confused to find actual people out here, the guy checks out the unknown figure stepping out of the trees. An older dude rocking a dark cloak walks toward the foreigner under the tree shadows. The mysterious old guy stops a few feet away, staring at our MC looking dead serious. The elder scans the guy up and down, while Juin tries to guess who this random visitor is. Looking away, the old man checks out some brutal scratch marks on the rocks nearby. Analyzing the massive tracks, the guy realizes they belong to a huge beast and is shocked to see the foreigner took the monster down entirely solo. The old man remembers spying on the big guy over the last few days, recalling perfectly that the kid couldn't even swing an axe right. Curious, he wonders how a dude with zero hunting skills managed to clap a monster that size. Shaking his head, the old man figures even a pro would struggle hardcore against that creature without the right gear. Squinting, the mysterious stranger keeps thinking about this massive puzzle. Intrigued by the nearly impossible feat, he decides to test the guy to get some real answers. Walking again, the man moves toward our MC on the trail. The elder's expression gets way more intense and judgmental as he steps up. In his head, he pulls up the memory of seeing the fresh wound on the guy's arm just hours ago. The veteran hunter notes the injury looked like a wolf bite but was way too clean, meaning the dude should have already kicked the bucket from a major infection. He knows for a fact the muscles would be shredded, stopping the foreigner from moving right, which points to one single logical answer. Stopping right in front of our MC, the old man suspects the big guy might be a super rare mate. After all, the lore says only magic users have the god-tier skills to heal massive damage that easily. In the old man's head, regular NPCs like them go their whole lives without ever bumping into a real mate. Staring the guy down, the elder figures that if this big dude actually uses magic, it's a whole new ballgame. A confident smirk pops onto the hunter's face, secretly hyping up that his big break finally arrived. Standing in front of the foreigner, the old man believes the revenge he thought was impossible just fell right into his lap before his time's up. Totally lost in the silence, Juin analyzes the weird old guy, trying to figure out what his deal is. Diving into his own memories, the old man admits he's just a forgotten boomer today, but proudly remembers when he was young and full of energy. His backstory shows that forest rangers had to serve in the war, getting a shot at becoming advisors to the local lord if they popped off. Driven by that dream of leveling up, he ditched his own dad to become a solo hunter and looked for a village to start grinding. Hitting up his chosen zone, he became the village lumberjack, amazed by the mountain loaded with loot. The only grind back then was gathering enough wood, since any basic NPC was allowed to farm the edge of the forest. Out of options, the young hunter decided to push deeper and deeper into the mountains to unlock them. Exploring the remote zones, he had zero clue why the locals dodged the heart of the woods so hard. The local rules were strict. An official lumberjack needed to have perfect HP to take the guard job. Knocked on the ground with his body totally wrecked, the young guy failed that main quest requirement before even signing the official contract. Staring into the dark woods, the kid panicked hard when he ran into a massive, raging beast, regretting the random tragedy that ruined his run. The terrifying monster that jumped the young hunter was actually a goblin living on that mountain. The ugly creature rushed him growling aggressively, leaving the guy totally paralyzed with fear. The old man remembers these mobs used to kidnap human women to force them to spawn their kids. Because of that messed up habit, the village, which already lacked women, became the main target for raids, and the young hunter got easily captured during one of those attacks. Unable to block, the guy felt the extreme agony of getting absolutely wrecked by the mob, marking game over for his big childhood dream. After that disaster, he was forced to endure a trash life, surviving purely on the hope of one day getting his payback. The hunter spent decades living among the villagers he despised, keeping his brain locked on the single goal of getting back at the monsters who griefed his life. With that massive grudge in his heart, he did whatever to survive, swearing he'd only log off for good when he burned their nest to ashes. Back to the present, the veteran hunter stares at the foreigner in the woods, absolutely sure this big guy has the stats needed to make his wish happen. Scanning the guy's build, he notes the dude has a physical frame better than anyone in the server and brute strength like a literal giant. Plus, the foreigner's insane healing factor left the old man totally mind-blown. Seeing all those obvious buffs, the old guy concludes this mystery man could easily outscale any monster hunter he's ever met. The veteran knows full well that right now, the goblins are just camping deep in the mountain waiting for the perfect timing. But when the lack of women gets bad in the nest, the mobs will 100 rush down to raid the village, and until that day drops, he plans to power level the guy into an elite hunter. Knowing he has to keep the monsters a secret until a deal is struck, the old man drops a friendly smile, knowing that once the foreigner accepts the magic contract, he can't back out or try to rage quit. Wasting zero time, the old man steps up and does a super polite bow, greeting our MC in the local language. Even with all that politeness, Juin quickly clocks that the veteran kept his center of gravity shifted back, making it obvious he didn't drop his guard for a second. Keeping up the friendly act, the veteran hunter announces that starting today he's going to drop all his forest knowledge on the guy. The big dude just stares at the old man looking totally confused, while listening to the promise that he'll become a top-tier hunter under his wing. The next day, the foreigner rushes out of the house bright and early, thinking to himself that he blinked and the sun was already up. Before walking off, he takes one last look at the rustic cabin, making sure everything is chill. Outside, the old hunter is already waiting patiently near the firewood, which makes the guy a bit uncomfortable since he doesn't want randoms on his property. Our MC's biggest fear is that the villagers might think they can just stroll into the house while he's AFK, invading Lizzie and little Dorothy's safe zone. Interrupting the foreigner's thoughts, the old man turns when he hears him coming and gives a chill wave. Seeing the veteran smile, Juin feels a bit of side-eye creeping up, finding that friendly look pretty sus. That exact smile immediately reminded him of the face his old HR manager used to make during toxic salary negotiations. Even with the red flags waving, he figures the old man actually seems down to teach him how to hunt for real, so he decides to focus on the grind and absorb all the XP he can. Jogging back to the front door, the guy tells his wife he's heading out but promises he won't be long. The young girl sighs softly while handing him a simple packed lunch, showing a caring side that catches the husband totally off guard. The big guy feels his face heat up instantly, finding his partner's clumsy sweetness incredibly adorable. Suddenly, the chill vibe is broken by the sound of fast footsteps running across the living room floor. Little Dorothy pops up rushing and full of energy, heading straight for the front door looking cute as a butt. With zero warning, the kid throws herself at her stepdad's legs and hugs him super tight, leaving the foreigner completely surprised. Matching her daughter's hype, Lizzie points to the food and sweetly asks her husband not to forget to eat properly while grinding in the woods. Taking the lunchbox gently, our MC is left speechless for a few seconds, soaking in all that attention focused just on him. A super genuine smile takes over the guy's face, privately admitting how awesome it is to have a family that actually cares about his HP. Smiling sweetly, the young girl waves goodbye, wishing her husband a super safe hunting trip. Trying to get used to the new language, the big guy repeats the goodbye phrase as a question, correctly guessing what those sweet words meant. Hyped about his effort to learn the language, Lizzie confirms his guess with a soft nod and a super warm smile. Right after, Juin talks to his stepdaughter who is still clinging to his leg, asking her to let go just a little bit. Getting the memo, the little one backs off skipping and waves happily, also wishing the big guy a good trip. The foreigner waves back with major enthusiasm at the front door, promising the little girl he'll be back as fast as he can. Walking away from the cabin to meet up with the veteran, the guy silently admits that the biggest issue right now is that his urge to leave the house has totally vanished. With a heart full of genuine joy, he shoots one last loving look back at the wooden door. In his eyes, his new wifey and kid are so precious that leaving them alone, even for a few hours, has become a massively difficult quest. Time flies and the duo hikes through the deep forest, keeping a steady pace under the shadows of the massive old trees. Noticing the guide's silence, the foreigner starts wondering what exactly the old man is trying to show him with this massive hike. Curious about the lack of tutorial pop-ups, the guy decides to pay close attention to the veteran's feet to find some clue about the training. Just then, the experienced hunter stops walking abruptly right in the middle of the dirt trail. The sudden stop catches our MC off guard, making him freeze on the spot. Turning slightly, the old man points at the ground and says a few words in a super instructional, calm tone. The big guy looks down instantly and notices that the footprints left by the older man have a really weird shape in the soft dirt. Checking out the marks closely, Juin realizes the old guy's walking animation is way different from normal, hinting at a super useful hidden technique. As the old man goes back to walking silently, the guy wonders if this is some kind of special move straight out of a martial arts fantasy novel. Whatever it is, the foreigner decides the best strat to learn is to watch every step closely and copy the movements exactly like the instructor. Locked in, he starts mimicking the weird steps, trying to shift his body weight carefully so he doesn't make any noise on the leaves. The grind to keep perfect balance takes a ton of focus during the hike, but the guy stays committed to mastering the new stealth tech. Noticing the student's massive effort, the experienced hunter flashes a super satisfied smile over his shoulder, approving the foreigner's fast learning curve. From that point on, the veteran fully embraced the mentor role, dropping all the practical survival secrets about the wild mountain. The hardcore training included touching local tree bark, with the old man dropping lore that every mountain zone has its own unique plant types you need to memorize. Besides the plants, the guide also helped our MC read the terrain elevation, making him trace the shape of the land with his own hands to build a solid mental map of the zone. After hours of intense hiking and heavy practical learning, the duo finally decides to take a quick breather near a rocky cliff. The old man gets comfortable leaning against the hard rock and starts digging through his leather bag for some loot. Enjoying the chill break, the foreigner unties his lunch cloth looking super hyped, feeling his stomach growling loud from starving. Sighing in relief that he can finally eat, he celebrates the well-deserved AFK moment after all that heavy physical grind. Staring at the little wrapped package, the guy gets super excited for the chance to taste the meal his wife prepped with so much love early this morning. The second he pops the wooden lid, a god-tier smell fills the forest air, making his mouth water instantly. The amazing smell of hot food takes over the area, but the hype is cut short when the old hunter points a finger looking super bossy. In a seriously strict tone, the veteran warns him in the local language not to even think about eating that lunch out here in the woods. Shaking his head no super aggressively, the old man leaves the foreigner completely lost, having absolutely zero clue why he just got banned from eating. The logic quickly clicks in the guy's brain, realizing how much the smell of seasoned food stands out like crazy in the natural forest environment. Taking the master's advice, Juin figures the strong scent would get carried by the wind and instantly pull aggro from some seriously dangerous wild animals. Packing the lunch back into his bag carefully, the big guy feels crushed thinking about Lizzie's hard work, bummed that this first special meal might also be the last. Later on, the duo wraps up the exhausting hike, arriving at a rustic, well-built cabin that acts as the veteran hunter's safe house. Walking in super chill, the old man grabs his hunting gear, and our MC immediately notices the bow in the master's hands has a pretty weird and unusual design for this region. Checking out the weapon's shape, our MC remembers the only bows he knows have a standard curved design. With that in mind, he wonders how anyone could even shoot using such a weird piece of gear. The old master holds the weapon out to the guy, telling him to grab the bow and follow him. Walking right behind the hunter, the big guy still secretly doubts if it's even possible to use that thing. He checks the weight of the gear, totally sure it would take insane strength to pull the string on something that huge. Stopping in the middle of the clearing, the veteran gets into stance and starts drawing his bow with solid form. Juin is blown away seeing the master stay perfectly still, looking like time literally stopped around him. The shot slices through the forest wind at crazy speed. The arrow pins right into the trunk of a distant tree with god-tier accuracy. Absolutely mesmerized by the scene, the foreigner finally gets the right technique to pull off the shot. Full of determination, he lifts his own gear and tries to copy the move, pulling the heavy string. The experienced hunter steps up quick, fixing the student's posture with firm taps. During the physical adjustment, the guy is amazed by the old man's stability, not moving a single inch. Absorbing the lesson, the foreigner takes a deep breath and locks in completely on his aim. Hours fly by with the hardcore training, where the big guy absorbs all the vocab and essential moves to become a legit hunter. Knowing his own responsibilities, the guy reinforces the idea that he needs to grind hard so he can handle everything solo ASAP. His biggest goal right now is to become a man capable of providing for his wife and kid with dignity. Far away from there, the humble cabin chills peacefully under the clear sky and white snow. Inside, little Dorothy is playing happily on the bed, singing about her stepdad's dark hair and the red meat they ate. With her tummy full, the little girl rubs her stomach, feeling like the food is still expanding in there. The kid lets out a cute giggle, enjoying the rare moment of comfort. Right next to her, the young mom is also having fun, and the little one notices how much she's been laughing since the foreigner showed up. Watching the girl fold clothes, Dorothy admits that hearing that laugh brings a super warm and cozy feeling to her heart. Sliding around the bed, the little girl hopes the food digests fast just so she can eat it all over again. But a random thought crashes into the kid's brain, making her question what her actual connection is to that big guy. The little girl remembers neither of them are her blood parents and gets scared she'll end up being the third wheel in all this. The fear of abandonment hits hard, imagining the guy will just take his wife away sometime soon. With tears filling her eyes, the little girl panics internally, wondering what's gonna happen to her. Right then, a quiet noise pulls the kid out of her scary thoughts. Looking around, she notices her mom is gone and gets confused, searching the house for her. Past trauma bubbles up, bringing back the cruel voice that used to call her useless. The memory shows her old biological dad acting super toxic, complaining she was only good for wasting food. Huddled up and scared to death, the kid tries to push those dark memories away. Driven by survival instinct, the little one sprints straight to the barrel wanting to secure the meat first. Proud of herself for guarding the family stash, she goes back to wondering where her mom went. Suddenly, an aggressive yell from outside echoes, asking what they're hiding in there. The little girl gasps, completely frozen by the jump scare. Super carefully, she creeps up to the wooden door to peek through the crack. The view shows a squad of guys bullying the young mom, dudes the kid recognizes instantly. She knows these guys used to show up to threaten her old dad, always leading to days of absolute brutality inside the house. Hiding in the corner, the little one cries quietly, terrified that Lizzie might suffer the same cruel fate. Outside, the squad leader acts like a total jerk, accusing the girl of stealing the meat because of the strong smell on the property. Trying to defend herself, the girl swears the food was hunted by her husband, but the guy mocks her, saying hunting isn't that easy. One of the goons doubles down on the threats, throwing in her face that they set her up with a new guy so she wouldn't starve, and now they're getting robbed. Ignoring the girl's facts, the leader decides to raid the cabin to see with his own eyes what else is stashed inside. With zero patience, the guy tells the girl to shut up and violently shoves her to the dirt. Taking advantage of the open path, the home invaders bust into the humble house without asking. The squad's eyes bug out, absolutely mind-blown by what they find in there. Holding the massive wolf pelt, the leader celebrates the loot, knowing that thing is worth a literal fortune. Blinded by greed, the dude orders his goons to loot every corner of the shack. Terrified by the raid, little Dorothy quickly crawls under the furniture. Huddled in the dark, the kid listens to the invaders steal the meat and curses the guys in her head. Determined to protect her stuff, Lizzie runs inside the house in an act of pure desperation. The young girl throws herself in front of the pricey pelt with her arms wide, banning them from touching the loot. With a courage she never had before, she stands up to the raiders claiming that belongs to her family now. The squad leader stares at her mockingly, laughing at the fact that she didn't even have a voice to defend herself before. With zero mercy, the guy lands a cheap shot on the girl, annoyed she's acting so confident just because she scored a husband. The brutal hit makes the wife collapse hard on the wooden floor. Groaning in pain, Lizzie tries to recover from the unfair attack. From her hiding spot, the little girl watches all this cruelty, shaking in pure terror. Refusing to stay down, the girl shoots a look packed with deep hatred at her attacker. The intensity of that glare makes the leader step back, feeling a slight hesitation. Hiding, the little girl admits to herself she always used to pretend not to understand when bad things happened. The guilt trip hits hard, thinking she was always hated for being a coward, not knowing what to do right now. Annoyed by the girl's rebellion, the leader tries to keep his cool, while one of the goons shows fear of the foreigner coming back for revenge. The boss calms the squad down, saying the big guy doesn't even speak their language, so as long as they keep their mouths shut, there's zero problem. Deciding to bounce with the prize, the guy grabs the young girl by the arm to drag her away with the loot. While the goons gather the pelt and meat, the leader forcibly drags the girl against her will. The young girl begs to be let go, but the invader threatens to come back in the dead of night and burn the whole house down if she snitches to her husband. Dragging his victim away, the leader walks off laughing at his own insane luck for scoring so much loot on a simple visit. As soon as the dust settles, little Dorothy crawls out from under the furniture in a heartbreaking silence. The panic of losing the only mom figure who ever loved her completely takes over her little heart. Desperate, the little girl runs toward the exit as fast as her tiny legs can carry her. Unable to hold back her emotions, the kid starts bawling in a super painful cry. Standing in the empty yard, the little girl screams with everything she's got, crying and begging for Juan to hurry back and save them. The echo of her despair cuts through the air, with the distant view of the invaders dragging the young girl away from her own house. Far away, our MC and the old hunter are having a chill walk through the forest, with the guy mentioning the day felt super long. Just then, the big guy stops walking abruptly, turning his head as he picks up something unnoticeable in the woods. Acting super polite, he does a quick bow and thanks the master for all the XP today. The sound of a very loud cry reaches his ears, making the guy instantly recognize Dorothy's voice. Looking urgently toward the shack, Juan concludes the little girl would literally never cry like that unless something seriously bad happened. With his heart racing, he starts sprinting like a madman, wondering if something terrible went down at his base. Maxing out his speed, the foreigner swears to himself that if anything happened to those two, somebody's gonna pay. Reaching the clearing, shock hits the guy like a truck when he sees his wife being dragged away by the village trash. An uncontrollable rage wakes up inside Juan, promising to absolutely end whoever this squad is. Hearing the heavy stomping behind them, the invaders turn around confused, trying to figure out who's rushing them. Giving them zero time to react, the big guy charges in and lands a brutal hit straight to the leader's face. The violent impact drops the guy to the dirt, leaving the goons completely shook by how aggressive that was. Totally surprised, Lizzie watches her husband crash the party, feeling a mix of massive relief and terror. Pushing forward without hesitating for a second, the foreigner keeps walking toward the gang while the guys back up in panic. Terrified by the brutality, one of the thugs throws his arms up trying to shield his face from the foreigner. Taking advantage of the massive opening, our MC lands an insanely strong kick on the enemy with absolutely zero mercy. From the impact, the guy gets launched and hits the grass hard, while the rest of the squad goes into full panic mode. In an act of pure desperation, another blonde thug tries his luck and throws a punch at the big guy. But the attack is useless, and Juin quickly grabs the dude's arm to hit him with an epic, lethal takedown. Unable to block, the attacker goes flying over the guy's shoulder with scary ease. The guy hits the ground with massive violence, getting the wind totally knocked out of him from the drop. Instantly, the foreigner jumps on the downed invader and starts dropping a combo of hits, knowing he can't stop now. Juin reflects that human nature is toxic, totally sure that if he shows any weakness, they'll just come back to grief his family later. Standing tall with a terrifying aura, he decides he needs to permanently burn this painful lesson into these guys' brains, so they never step foot here again. Scared out of his mind, the down thug tries to crawl away, having no idea where the big guy's pure rage is coming from. Just as our MC raises his fist to keep teaching the lesson, his wife's desperate voice echoes calling for him. In that split second of distraction, the cowardly invader pulls a sickle for a sneak attack, while Lizzie screams an urgent warning in her own language. With crazy reflexes, the foreigner blocks the attack, firmly gripping the armed guy's wrist. Twisting the dude's arm with insane brute force, the guy makes the invader scream in pure agony instantly. Oozing a dark, furious energy, Juin keeps the grip, ready to snap the guy's arm once and for all. Out of nowhere, the old hunter pops up in the clearing, screaming desperately for his student to stop right now. Grabbing the foreigner's arm, the veteran begs him to chill, while the invader keeps groaning in massive pain on the ground. The master points behind him and firmly asks if the big guy can't see how terrified his own daughter is. Looking where he pointed, the guy sees his wife frozen and completely in shock. Huddled under the wooden frame, little Dorothy is crying nonstop, scared to death of all that violent chaos. The reality check hits hard, making our MC drop the thug and stare at his new family in dead silence. A cold wind blows through, carrying away the tension of the fight and leaving a super heavy vibe in the. Staring at her husband, Lizzie admits to herself he seemed so gentle every day that she never imagined he could get terrifyingly angry like that. Painful memories pop up, and the girl admits the guy's brutality against the invaders looked a lot like her late husband's toxic behavior. Looking at the guys wrecked on the grass, a quick wave of fear hit the young girl's heart, scared she might end up getting treated the same way later. However, noticing the anxious look on Juin's face, that fear vanished instantly, proving he wasn't trying to scare her. Locking onto his deep, gentle eyes, she instantly realizes those moves were just the desperation of a guy trying to protect them. Walking slowly toward the young girl, the foreigner looks super worried, secretly thinking she's terrified of him. Stopping right in front of his wife, he calls her name in a sweet tone, while the girl wonders why her reaction matters so much to the big guy. Gathering all the courage she can, the girl takes a step forward, trying to break the invisible wall between them. Noticing her husband's huge hands shaking slightly, she guesses he's so nervous because he thinks he failed his mission to not scare her. Looking at his super sad eyes, the young girl wishes from the bottom of her heart that he'd stop carrying that heavy guilt. Lizzie thinks that explaining she isn't scared without words would be way easier, but the language barrier makes it super complicated. With no other option, the girl takes a deep breath, shaking her head to push away her own shyness and make a final move. Stepping up confidently, she calls the big guy's name loud and clear to get his attention. Speeding up across the yard, the young girl runs the last few feet, separating her from her still tense husband. With extreme sweetness, she tightly holds the foreigner's huge hands between her own. Feeling the warmth of that super gentle touch, the girl is absolutely sure she made the right call. Totally emotional, Lizzie realizes that next to this guy she's safe and nobody will ever be able to hurt her again. Pulling his hands close to her face, she shows massive affection and genuine gratitude for being saved from danger. With tears of joy in her eyes, the young girl drops a super sincere, sweet thank you in her own language. Surprised by the incredibly warm reaction, our MC feels a massive weight lift off his shoulders. Staring at his wife with pure tenderness, he repeats her name, looking insanely relieved. In a burst of pure affection, the guy pulls his partner into a super tight hug and also thanks her for trusting him blindly. Hugging her back, the big guy rubs her back, asking himself why she's showing so much gratitude. Deep down, the guy truly believes that if anyone should be giving thanks every day for scoring a real family, it's 100 him. Suddenly, the girl's eyes go wide, remembering a super important detail that got completely missed during the chaos. Huddled in her hiding spot, little Dorothy watches the couple looking super sad and shaken. Breaking the hug instantly, Lizzie points frantically at the cabin to get her husband's attention. Panicking too, Juan calls the little girl's name and they both sprint toward the wooden house. Reaching the kid fast, the young mom crouches down super worried, asking if the little one is hurt. The girl lets out a heavy sigh of pure anxiety, looking closely at the little girl's emotional state. Shivering on top of a rustic box, the little girl tries to hold back her own crying, looking miserable. In the kid's mind, the sight of her stepdad's giant fists wrecking the invaders caused absolute terror, even if she was the one who yelled for help. The past trauma comes crashing back, bringing scary flashbacks of the bruised faces of the women she used to live with. Terrified of ending up with the same violent fate, the little girl tries to gaslight herself into not crying so she doesn't annoy the adults. With tears rolling down her little face, the kid mumbles quietly, taking the blame for all that chaos. Heartbroken, Lizzie pulls her daughter into an incredibly protective hug, asking what kind of nonsense the kid is talking about. Staring at her adopted mom, Dorothy feels an urgent need to apologize for everything, terrified of being ignored and abandoned all over again. With tears in her eyes, Lizzie apologizes for hiding instead of helping. Totally wrecked, the young girl begs the kid to never leave her alone. The girl admits that when they locked eyes earlier, she purposely pretended not to know her. In that moment, the dread of the thugs finding the kid took over. Little Dorothy runs to hug her mom super tight. Feeling the kid's warmth, Lizzie swears she has absolutely zero reason to feel guilty for that mess. Snuggling her daughter, the young girl explains it's normal to be scared, but now everything is totally fine. After all, their dad finally arrived to keep them safe. Hearing that word, the little girl gets totally confused. In her innocent brain, her real dad already logged out of this world. The girl agrees and makes it clear that Juan is just Juan. She reinforces that she totally gets the big guy as her new husband. Following that basic logic, the young girl explains her partner automatically becomes the kid's dad. The little girl is still buffering this wild info. To make it easier, Lizzie asks if she isn't the girl's stepmom. The little one nods yes without hesitating. So if Dorothy is her daughter, the big guy is now her new dad. The kid's eyes bug out, shocked by the plot twist and denying it's true. Peeking through the wooden door, the little girl watches the foreigner from a distance. The idea of having that massive dude as a dad figure seems totally unreal. Amazed, she whispers to her mom asking if that giant guy is really her daddy. Lizzie confirms it with solid confidence. Petting the little one, the girl reminds her the foreigner is totally different from the old man of the house. Instead of being toxic, he's a gentle guy who protects them from all the bad stuff. A flashback crosses the kid's mind, remembering the heavy hits the guy dropped on the invaders. She connects the dots that he wrecked those scary guys just because she cried for help. Hit by a sudden wave of clarity, the little girl jumps up, leaving her mom kinda confused by the hype. With a massive sparkle in her eye, the little one flashes a huge, radiant smile. Full of hype, she screams the word daddy at the top of her lungs. The reality finally clicks for the kid, accepting that the guy with the giant hands and feet is actually her new dad. Wasting zero time, Dorothy sprints straight into the yard. In her kid imagination, he's a ridiculously strong hero who's there to guard the squad. The little girl fondly remembers that the big guy is never rude and always gives them tight hugs during the freezing nights. Plus, she remembers his gentle smile and how he secured the meat for dinner, even picking out a beautiful name just for her. Glowing with happiness, the little girl thinks it's the greatest thing ever to be named by her very own dad. The kid keeps screaming happily across the clearing. The sudden noise catches Juan totally off guard, making the foreigner look back. Seeing the kid running at him leaves the guy completely speechless at all that energy. Catching the vibe, the big guy turns fully and opens his arms to catch the little one. With a happy jump, Dorothy lands right in our MC's warm hug, spamming her favorite new nickname nonstop. Wrapping the kid up with massive affection, the foreigner notices she's still rambling in an unknown language. Even so, the guy feels deep down that he totally gets what she means. Resting the little one against his chest, Juan vibes with that moment of pure peace and connection in the dark forest. Suddenly, a kinda sketchy smell hits the air. Confused, the guy tries to figure out where that weird odor is coming from. Feeling the dampness on the kid's clothes, the truth drops. He realizes the little girl accidentally peed her pants, probably from the massive panic earlier. Looking at her innocent smile, he actually feels bad for even noticing the accident. Worried about the freezing weather, the big guy decides to change her outfit fast so she doesn't catch a cold. Carrying his daughter, our MC speedwalks back to the rustic cabin, locked in on taking care of his little angel. The wholesome family vibe overflows when Lizzie joins the two in a massive, warm group hug. Out of nowhere, little Dorothy peeks over her stepdad's shoulder and spots something super important left on the ground. Pointing frantically, the kid screams about the lost food, making the couple look back instantly. Without a second thought, the kid sprints past the adults, completely ignoring the defeated thugs on the floor. With laser focus on the prize, the little girl steps off the small stone stair with unbreakable determination. Reaching the rustic bucket full of meat the invaders tried to steal, she gets ready to rescue the family stash. Using all her tiny strength, Dorothy grips the edges of the thick wood trying to lift that massive container. With ridiculous effort, the kid lifts the weight, showing a face of pure focus and victory. Stumbling through the grass, she starts walking back toward the couple, while the young mom calls for her looking a bit anxious. The little one doesn't quit and keeps dragging the heavy object step by step, proving that when it comes to meat, she does not mess around. The kid finally reaches the big guy dragging the bucket. Blown away by her willpower, Juan drops a genuine compliment. The foreigner admits to himself that this kid's obsession with meat is actually kinda scary, while Lizzie lets out an exhausted sigh right next to him. With a dull thud, Dorothy drops the container right in front of the guy, super proud of her epic rescue mission. Loving the scene, our MC lifts the little girl into the air, getting totally hyped, celebrating the tiny hero's huge win. The kid's eyes sparkle, feeling like the main character. The guy jokes to himself that becoming her idol just because of food is literally the easiest quest ever. Taking control of the situation, Lizzie tells her husband to take the recovered meat inside the house ASAP. The girl points to the door and tells the guy to go inside with the kid, warning that outside is still a danger zone. Nearby, the little one is still locked onto the food. Listening to his wife's solid advice, Juan grabs the kid's little hand and walks them both back to the safety of their base. Safe inside the shack, the big guy wipes the sweat off his face and lets out a long sigh, trying to buffer all the stress from the fight. Right after, he heads back out to the yard alone, walking with heavy steps toward the invaders who are still knocked out on the dirt. A dark, super menacing aura takes over our MC's face, ready to settle the score once and for all. But the old hunter pops up again and intercepts the foreigner, catching the guy totally off guard with the sudden block. The veteran scolds his student hard, telling him to chill with the aggression. Confused, Juan asks if the master is seriously telling him to spare these trash mobs. Thinking about the advice, the guy agrees it would be a total disaster if he got locked up because of a bunch of useless NPCs. Looking back at the cabin with a sad vibe, he realizes he's got massive responsibilities now since he's not playing solo anymore. Staring at the downed enemies, the big guy coldly swears he's going to burn every single one of their faces perfectly into his memory. The foreigner cracks his knuckles, making a loud pop, while the veteran monster hunter watches him like a hawk. But before heading back in, the guy notices the gear the squad left behind. Knowing how much things cost, he loots their items as a tax, knowing it'll be clutch for survival. Carrying the new loot, Juan pushes the door and walks into a cozy scene, with his family waiting patiently in the lit room. Looking way more chill, the foreigner steps inside and shuts the wooden door, locking the village drama outside. Standing in the middle of the room, Juan drops the heavy looted supply box on the floor with a thud. Checking out the gear, the guy thinks about his past and figures that losing a family once in a lifetime is already way too much pain. A smile of pure relief shows up on the big guy's sweaty face, overflowing with love for his new life. Turning his attention back to the two of them, our MC makes an unbreakable vow. No matter what dangers pop up, he promises he'll always keep their home safe. Later, the foreigner gently touches Lizzie's bruised face. Frustrated, he secretly hates that he doesn't know how to use magic to heal that bruise right on the spot. The young wifey holds her husband's hand against her face with tons of affection, calmly promising she's totally fine. Trying to make him stop stressing, the girl playfully squishes the guy's cheeks, forcing him to crack a goofy smile. Moving fast out of nowhere, Juan grabs his wife and easily scoops her up into his arms, making the girl let out a tiny yelp of shock. Carrying his partner like a bodyguard, he excuses his bold move, complaining that the wooden floor is way too cold for her to walk barefoot. The young girl just stares at her partner with her face completely flushed, shocked but totally loving the random sweet gesture. Early the next day, Lizzie touches her own face and realizes, amazed, that the dark bruise from the hit is completely gone. Still laying in bed hugging her husband, the girl tries to find a logical answer, wondering if his crazy magic stuff actually worked. Juan flashes a massive, victorious smile, hyping up that he finally unlocked the healing spell. His partner just stares at the big guy, looking entirely confused, having absolutely no clue why he's celebrating so hard. Staring blankly at the light outside, Lizzie sighs and admits to herself that this strong dude must have finally lost his marbles. Far from the cabin, a villager complains angrily while shooing a chicken in her yard. The woman rants that the village boss doesn't respect his own master and is always sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. The village leader snaps right back to keep his ego intact. He asks if just handing over some fabric to the mountain guardian is really triggering her that much. Pissed at his passive vibe, the woman throws in his face that she hoarded that material for 10 long years and refuses to just lose it all like that. Trying to chill her out, the guy argues he literally had no other option back then. He defends himself saying the foreigner looked like a dude with major combat XP. The village boss calls his partner an idiot for not seeing the big picture. She just mocks him, asking what the epic payoff is for handing over the fabric so easily. The leader brings up the sketchy condition the protagonist was in when he hit the village. He points out that massive beast bite marks vanished from the guy's body crazy fast. Because of that, the guy concludes old Gus's theories were 100 accurate. In his eyes, the mountain guardian is actually a super rare healer May. Big braining, the boss figures he needs to handle this situation super carefully. He knows very well that even high-tier nobles want a busted mage on their payroll. The guy's imagination goes wild thinking about scoring a gig with a royal castle. If the royals want the guy's services, he's positive he can sell him out for an absolute fortune. Hyped on his own greed, the man envisions a bright future loaded with luxury. If the scheme works, he plans to live a lifestyle way beyond some random village leader. Checking the current meta, he relaxes remembering nobody else knows there's a healer around. After all, the locals are way too clueless to notice any magic details. But the real issue would be if the leaks hit the streets. If some guild or noble takes the big guy away before he gets paid, his whole master plan is basically chalked. Because of that, the leader decides the only guy he can trust right now is veteran Gus. The play is to let the hunter monitor the foreigner while he scouts for a rich buyer. Turning back to the woman, the boss advises her to buddy up with the guardian's wife ASAP. He points out the guy is super sharp and leveled up his hunting skills fast. The man warns they need to be extra careful, since the foreigner is on a totally different level than the NPCs. One slip-up could make the big guy realize they're skimming goods and end up reporting their scam. Plus, the guy mentions hearing rumors that the outsider is totally obsessed with his new wife. He hints that being besties with the young girl could score them some dirt-cheap rabbit peels. Taking the deal without blinking, the woman turns her back to get back to her chores. She agrees that either way, there's stuff the women need to hash out together. Walking into the house, the local warns they should probably give back some of the loot they stole from the big guy's cabin on the mountain so they don't look super sus. Watching his partner walk away, the boss silently agrees about how terrifying that outsider is. He knows if they don't play this smart right now, they're 100 getting cancelled later. Far away from that shady village plotting, a piece of firewood gets tossed straight into a rustic fireplace. The fire rages in the furnace, eating up the wood fast while the heat takes over the closed room. Staring at the flames with a villainous smirk, the village boss cooks up his dark get-rich-quick scheme. He accepts that to get the good loot, you gotta sacrifice some basic gear first. A few days pass and the weather starts out super sunny and chill around the humble mountain cap. Strolling peacefully through his own yard, Juin checks out the zone looking incredibly relaxed. He quickly notices how his wife is practically glowing with happiness today. Kneeling on the ground, Lizzie is organizing a bunch of new fabrics with tons of care. The girl figures the village boss must have thought one piece of cloth wasn't enough and sent more gifts. Smiling non-stop, the girl holds the small items and spices that got returned. Our MC watches her amazed, surprised she didn't get this hyped even when he literally healed her bruise. Loving his partner's simple vibes, the big guy feels his heart melt for real. He thinks about how seeing her like this reminds him that true happiness is always in the little things. A massive wave of love hits the guy right in the sunny living room. Full of pride, he silently admits he loves the girl exactly because she's a simple, amazing woman. Breaking the cozy silence, the foreigner happily announces he's heading out to grind. The young girl stops her chores and turns her head instantly to say bye. Waving super enthusiastically, Juin gets ready to start his forest run. Matching his energy, the wifey flashes a sweet smile and wishes her awesome partner a good trip. Watching her husband go, the girl tells him to stay super safe out there. The big guy walks through the wooden door ready to face another day of hardcore training. Walking confidently on the green grass, Juin remembers the chat he had earlier with his master. Old Gus mentioned today's main quest was hunting some rabbits in the zone. Passing by the massive pile of firewood near the house, the guy keeps his brain 100 locked on the hunt. He secretly wonders if they'll actually manage to snag some high-value loot today. The image of little Dorothy dancing happily with a bone pops into his head. Knowing his stepdaughter's insane appetite, the foreigner really wants to bring back meat to make the kids' day. But gripping his axe, a heavy moral dilemma hits him. Our MC questions if he's actually got the guts to end a harmless little animal. Shaking his head to snap out of it, Juin tries to stay locked in. He gets that to survive as a hunter in this hardcore server, he has to drop his modern sensitivities. Even trying to act tough, his imagination betrays the poor guy again. The image of a cute, fluffy white bunny merges with his adorable daughter wearing long bunny ears. Completely melting from the cuteness, the big guy covers his embarrassed face. He admits he can't stop associating the animal with his wife, feeling like it's literally impossible to hurt something that looks like her. Looking at the thick forest, the foreigner comes up with a hilariously weird fix. To get the elimination without feeling bad, he hopes the target is absolute nightmare fuel. As if the creepy mountain actually heard his bizarre request, two red eyes glow in the dark. A massive, terrifying creature watches him from the low bushes. Sometime later, our MC wipes his sweat on the side of his cabin. Totally wiped out, he lets out a heavy sigh of relief for wrapping up the morning grind. Looking at the fresh pile of firewood, the guy checks his daily progress. He's hyped he managed to fetch water and chop all the wood, still having plenty of free time before lunch. Stretching his tired body on the grass, Juin decides to use his AFK time smart. He figures it's the perfect moment to practice his hidden magic a bit. Staring at his own hands kinda annoyed, the foreigner thinks about how glitchy his powers are. He thinks it's wild he can easily heal massive damage but fails to spawn a basic spark. The memory of the insanely intense fight against the wolf hits his brain hard. Remembering the exact second his arm exploded in flames, the guy wonders how he pulled off such insane damage output then. Locked in on solving the magic puzzle, the big guy enters full focus mode. He concludes the spell probably only procced before because he was panicking from getting attacked. Breathing deep to relax his muscles, the foreigner switches up his main strat. He decides to focus on channeling the energy through his core before doing anything else. With a sudden move, Juin thrusts his hand forward with total confidence. Believing in the process, he screams the spell name Firestorm at the top of his lungs. But absolutely nothing happens and the forest stays dead silent. Dropping his hand, completely frustrated, our MC admits he's not even that mad because deep down he wasn't expecting much anyway. A bit of sadness hits remembering that his healing magic doesn't have any cool RGB lights or epic sound effects. In his head, little Dorothy is totally let down by the lack of VFX. Sighing heavily, the foreigner stares at his hands looking defeated. He admits he really wanted to show the kid some real fire, bummed he can't control this insanely dangerous power. Suddenly, a tiny magic crackle breaks the silence in the rustic yard. Caught off guard, the guy watches some glowing sparks randomly spawn on the tip of his index finger. A proud smirk shows up on the big guy's face seeing the tiny flame lit up in front of him. Even while celebrating the flex, he notices the spell is basically just a harmless light or flame. Hiding near the stone wall, little Dorothy spies on the whole thing super focused. The kid tracks her stepdad's moves without making a peep to ruin the moment. Seeing the glowing light on the foreigner's finger, the little girl is absolutely mind-blown by the magic. The kid goes into pure hype mode over the surreal visual happening in her yard. Unable to hold back the excitement, Dorothy runs at the guy pointing like crazy. Screaming happily, the little one announces her dad is literally making real fire out of nothing. Worried about her rushing in, Juin pulls his hand back and warns her she's way too close to the dangerous flame. Ignoring him, the kid turns around, dead set on telling her mom the epic news. Totally hypnotized by the glitch, the little girl watches the magic fire dancing on his fingers. She grabs her dad's hand, letting out a long sigh of pure childhood wonder. Yanking the young girl's arm with major urgency, Dorothy drags her mom outside, taking huge steps. The little girl points anxiously at the foreigner, demanding Lizzie look at the miracle right now. Standing in the yard, the wife is completely shook by the unreal scene happening just feet away. Unable to speak, the girl buffers the fact her husband is holding live fire on his skin. Jumping with pure joy, little Dorothy celebrates that her mom is seeing the magic too. Juin watches them totally enchanted, wishing he could buff the flame but admits the controls are way too clunky. Despite the rough start, the foreigner feels like a winner for finally managing to cast both healing and fire. He hopes at least this spark will be useful for starting campfires later, while Lizzie mutters in shock. Clapping hard for the epic trick, the young wife smiles radiantly. Right after, she turns her back, making the guy ask, confused, if they already got bored of his awesome showcase. Leaving our MC hanging, mom and daughter casually walk back inside the humble cabin. The duo just cancels playtime to get back to their daily house chores. Left alone in the yard, Juin is absolutely triggered by being abandoned so fast. The big guy grumbles quietly, remembering he grinded insanely hard just to cast that tiny little fire. Shaking his hand in the air repeatedly, the foreigner tries to put out the flame no matter what. Failing completely, he wonders what the exact command is to deactivate the annoying spell. The stubborn little flame keeps burning strong on his fingertip. Tired of fighting his own magic, the guy gives up and accepts he's stuck with it until the buff runs out. But the second he relaxes his posture, the fire mysteriously vanishes in the blink of an eye. Caught off guard, our MC is clueless about how the magic effect canceled so fast and unpredictable. Staring at his empty hand again, the foreigner lets out a long sigh of confusion. He concludes the magic rules in this server are just way too bizarre and lack any logical pattern. Walking through the rustic wooden door, Juin enters the house looking super chill. The guy scans the room looking for his new family's awesome company. Calling the kid's name sweetly, he spots the little girl leaning against a giant food bucket in the corner. The kid has the most miserable, depressed look on her face. With literal tears in her eyes, Dorothy points to the bottom of the dark container. In a whiny voice, the little girl cries that the top-tier piece of meat inside is way too small. Seeing his daughter's adorable frustration, the big guy feels awful for that sad little face. He instantly gets that the kid is crying purely because their food stash got nerfed. Flashing a smile packed with dad determination, the foreigner swears to the kid he'll bring back fresh rabbit meat today. The genuine urge to make the girl happy becomes his ultimate motivation to hunt. Suddenly, a deep voice from outside echoes through the house calling our MC's name. Juin turns his head, surprised to see the old hunter is already geared up and waiting in the yard. The old hunter chills outside the house, greeting Juin casually as soon as he steps out. Gripping his bow tight, our MC announces he's heading out for his forest training. Standing in the doorway next to her daughter, the young wifey wishes her beloved partner a super safe trip. Giving his stepdaughter some sweet head pats, the big guy calls her a good girl, getting a super hyped "yeah" from the kid. The master tells them all to be super careful while he's gone, making the foreigner ask Lizzie to stay alert guarding the base too. Taking advantage of the goodbye, the girl steps up and drops a soft kiss on her husband's cheek. With an adorable pout, little Dorothy demands a kiss too so she doesn't miss out on the love. Finding the whole thing hilarious, the guy immediately kneels down to grant the kid's wish, while his wife cracks a genuine laugh right behind him. The foreigner kisses the kid's cheek super affectionately, filling the little girl's heart with pure joy. Interrupting the family moment, Gus asks suspiciously if he smells meat on the student's breath, guessing he snacked on the stash in secret again, which the kid confirms with maximum hype. Leaving the cabin behind, the duo hikes deep into the mountain, following the route where the traps were set. On the way, the veteran drops some high-tier knowledge, pointing out which trees make the best firewood for the cold. Every now and then, the old man makes the student stop on the trail to analyze tiny tracks, like animal drops in the wet dirt. Suddenly, Juin stops walking abruptly, triggered by some sketchy movement in the bushes. Staying in stealth mode, the master points to a specific spot in the leaves up ahead. Caught totally off guard by the spawn, the foreigner's eyes bug out trying to process the visual. A jacked, terrifying-looking creature steps out of the brush, and Gus casually confirms it's literally just a rabbit. Absolutely shook, the big guy wonders internally if evolution in this fantasy world turned a basic bunny into a nightmare kangaroo. The freaky beast flashes its sharp teeth, dropping an aggressive growl at the players invading its zone. Reading the room, the old hunter notices the animal still has high stamina, making it the perfect target for the guy's first real elimination. The master quickly warns that this quest won't be easy, requiring 100 focus. He explains in detail that fighting a mob that hits back is a totally different game than sniping an AFK target. Coaching his student, the old man tells our MC to knock the arrow he was given earlier. While the big guy preps his gear, Gus praises his big brain for already stringing together sentences in the local language so fast. With a dead serious look, the veteran declares this first hunt is entirely on the foreigner. The old man promises to teach him exactly how brutal the law of the jungle really is. No stalling, he orders the guy to step up to the raging creature with confidence. The next command is to shoot the animal's foot first, testing his aim on a moving target. Juin runs the strat through his head, realizing he'll deal with a stationary mob first, and then a target thrashing in agony. Wrapping up the tutorial, Gus reminds him the mountain is fair and doesn't buff humans, warning that being toxic for no reason always brings massive karma. The veteran reinforces that if the guy wants to make it back home alive, he better never forget today's lesson. Pulling the bowstring, Juin hesitates, thinking hitting the foot won't finish the mob and will just cause useless suffering. Super tense, our MC just can't understand why his master is forcing such a painful strat. Pressuring the student, Gus demands he shoot the foot already and only aim for the head after to secure the kill. Instantly, the freakish beast gets ready to lunge, growling aggressively. Not totally getting the old man's logic, the big guy admits all this pressure is bringing back dark memories of when he first spawned in this world. Flashbacks of his own weak body locked in a depressing cage crash into his mind. He remembers the smell of trash and the tiny space where people completely lost their humanity. The giant rabbit charges furiously, making Juin accept he knows nothing about this hardcore ecosystem. But a strong realization hits him as he sees the master is trying to level him up to survive as a legit hunter. With his determination restored, the foreigner lets the arrow fly at insane speed. The shot cuts the wind, but goes straight past the target and pins into a tree branch. Ignoring the whiffed attack, the monster keeps up its aggressive rush across the grass. Confused by the RNG, the guy stammers saying he was 100 sure his crosshair was dead on. Giving zero room for excuses, Gus orders him to try again, leaving the big guy shook that he has to pull off a second shot under pressure. The coach now tells him to aim for the front legs, while the student preps another arrow, doubting why this exhausting process is even necessary. Swallowing his hesitation, our MC decides he can't feel bad for a wild beast. Muscles tensed, he focuses entirely on keeping his wife and kid alive, treating the mob's growl like regular background noise. The arrow fires with lethal power, fueled by the drive to protect his new base. The wild glint in the creature's eye reflects the final moment, proving Juin is ready to become a ruthless monster to guarantee his family's future. Later, chilling on the forest floor, the guy bitterly reflects that he caused suffering on purpose, even though he could have one-shot the target. Leaning against a tree, he realizes hunting isn't glamorous at all. It's a messed-up act against nature. Staring at his calloused hands, the foreigner swears to never forget what he did today, accepting it's the only way to keep the balance between humans and mobs. Breaking the heavy vibe, the old hunter tells his student to grab all the loot they dropped earlier so they can extract. With a gentle smile, Gus genuinely thanks the guy for his massive effort and grind. Juin nods instantly and gets up to check the last trap hidden in the brush. Approaching the snare, the big guy squints when he notices a super weird detail. A fluffy, totally harmless-looking little animal is caught in the ropes, completely different from the massive beasts from before. Our MC points out the crazy difference in the target's look, but the master just tells him to hurry up and grab the loot. Pulling an unexpected move, the foreigner holds up his hand and asks the veteran to wait a sec. Juin suggests keeping the little guy alive to raise it in the yard, arguing their fast spawn rate could lock in a solid food stash for emergencies. Struggling to speak the native language, the guy uses hand gestures begging not to hurt the tiny creature. Catching the student's messy accent, the old hunter can't hold back and lets out a super genuine, wholesome laugh. Finding the strat pretty smart, Gus agrees to the plan, lifting a massive weight off our MC's shoulders. The master tells the guy to secure the little animal carefully so it doesn't lose HP, which Juin does instantly. Hauling the full bags after a successful grind, the duo walks back through the thick mountain scenery. Gripping the loot tightly, the big guy walks silently through the zone. Watching from afar, a tiny, sketchy figure tracks their movement from the bushes. Just ahead, their destination pops up as a super well-built wooden cabin deep in the woods. Inside the base, our MC thinks about his old life, where he had zero hope of ever building a family. Staring at a basic knife in his hands, he admits living this hunter routine still feels a bit surreal and wacky. But the guy feels like he finally unlocked a real purpose to live and grind for every single day. Walking through the rustic room, something totally out of place in the back catches his eye instantly. Resting on top of an iron cauldron, a wooden plaque shows off some seriously weird symbols. Looking at the markings closely, Juin is absolutely mind-blown to realize that text is from his original world, creating a massive lore mystery about how it spawned there. Holding the wooden sign with symbols from his world, the foreigner begs the old hunter to teach him how to read it, leaving the master shocked by the random request. The veteran suspiciously asks if the guy is absolutely sure he wants to learn this stuff. Without hesitating, Juin confirms he desperately wants that XP. Scratching his beard, the old man mutters, accepting the quest. Then he walks to the back of the cabin, with the hyped student following right behind him. Digging through a rustic cabinet, the master mentions the big guy will need some extra gear for this new grind. The hunter hands over a writing kit to the foreigner, while the guy keeps begging excitedly to start the tutorial right now. Turning his back, Gus tells the big guy to follow him, getting an instant, super energetic yes from our MC. The training switches gears, with the guy diving headfirst into practicing writing with a quill and ink. Watching the student sweat it out, the veteran finds the whole thing super weird, wondering why a random mountain NPC would even need to read. Staring at the plaques, the old man reflects he never thought those items would actually be useful. He originally bought them hoping to farm military rep and work for the nobles. Diving into his memories, the master remembers how long it took him to learn to read, admitting he never would have grinded that hard if he knew he'd end up isolated in the woods. Pushing those bitter thoughts away quick, the hunter decides to leave the past on read. Switching focus, he plans to start scouting the mountain for goblin tracks ASAP. The experienced boomer knows the activity level of those toxic mobs spikes during spring, demanding extra caution. Looking at the student locked in on his studies, Gus guesses the monsters probably live in a deep underground base, acknowledging the foreigner levels up his skills insanely fast. Feeling a pain in his injured leg, the old master concludes the ache is a clear warning that the boss fight against the goblins is dropping soon. With a look full of pure hatred, the veteran swears to himself he'll permanently delete every single one of those monsters. Far away, the humble family cabin chills peacefully under the daylight in the forest. Inside, Lizzie is stitching new fabrics, hyping up little Dorothy that these pieces are going to be her brand new outfits. The young wifey lets out a sweet laugh, joking about how many times the kid already asked if the drip was ready. The sound of the door opening cuts them off, grabbing the girl's attention, who instantly says her husband's name. Coming back from the woods, Juin gets rushed by the little girl running euphorically at him, yelling "Daddy." The big guy scoops his stepdaughter up, listening to her hype up the new clothes. Right then, the guy looks down at the massive cloth sack he hauled back from the hunt. The bag wiggles on its own on the floor, making the kid super curious about what's glitching inside. Pointing excitedly, the little girl asks if that's some kind of magic trick, but the foreigner says no and promises to show what's in the loot box. Watching her husband untie the knot one-handed while holding the kid, Lizzie secretly admires her partner's insane strength. The young girl quickly walks over and crouches down to help open the mystery drop. The second the cloth opens, the top of a head with long ears pops out. The little girl's eyes bug out in awe, realizing the creature was still wiggling. Our MC announces hyped that he brought a rabbit, making the kid jump out of his arms to inspect the new drop. The young wifey tells the little girl to chill for a sec while she pulls the animal out. Carefully, the girl pulls the fluffy white creature out of the bag. But the mob suddenly thrashes and jumps out of her hands, giving the young girl a solid jump scare. The little girl's eyes sparkle with wonder, locked onto the bouncing little pet. Right after, the kid notices a wacky detail and announces the little guy looks super weird. A tiny pointy horn is sticking right out of the fluffy beast's head. Sitting on the living room floor, the horned bunny looks around the family, seemingly totally confused by the new server. The kid thinks the little creature is the cutest thing ever, but her mom desperately tells her to stay back. Stressing over her daughter's safety, Lizzie figures that tiny horn could actually deal some damage. Taking charge, the young girl swears she'll capture the target to keep the kids safe. With a ninja move, the girl dives onto the wooden floor trying to grab the spooked animal. Shockingly, she manages to grip the rabbit tight, unable to believe she actually pulled it off. The wife is confused, internally questioning how she managed to catch a wild mob so easily. But looking closer at the creature, she realizes something's nerfed with the little guy. Holding the shaking beast, the young girl sadly notes it's actually injured. The little girl runs up to her mom super worried, repeating the fact that it's hurt. Heartbroken, the kid looks at her stepdad begging for a heal for the tiny creature. The foreigner steps up calmly and asks his wife to hand the little animal over to him. Trusting her partner, Lizzie passes the rabbit into the big guy's massive hands. Holding the tiny target, Juin charges his energy and gets ready to cast. A glowing, comforting magic light radiates from our MC's hands, healing the damage instantly. Watching the miracle up close, the little girl is amazed to see the pet's pain completely vanish. Pure hype takes over the kid, who praises her dad, calling him epic, while the guy just stares at his own spell. The big guy clears his throat, trying to hide the massive ego boost he got from the compliment, while the duo focuses on the little animal. Telling the kid to pay attention, he sets the horned rabbit on the floor super gently. The little girl watches curiously, trying to guess what her hero's next play is. Then the foreigner grabs a rustic basket and drops it over the creature to create a safe zone. Under the straw basket, the tiny animal finally chills out and passes out cold. Our MC gives his daughter head pats and hands her the main quest of guarding the new pet, leaving the kid totally shocked by the responsibility. Helping with the translation, Lizzie confirms the guy wants to make the kid the official caretaker of the bunny. Taking on the epic quest, the little girl confidently swears she'll be the best pet owner ever. Sitting down next to his family, the foreigner promises in a chill tone that he'll always keep them protected. The couple shares a look full of love and teamwork, just vibing with the peace of their newly built home. Later, the dark night takes over the woods, and the cabin sits in absolute silence. In the bedroom, little Dorothy sleeps like a rock, keeping the new pet's basket right next to her. Sitting on the bed, Juin grinds his vocab while thinking about how greedy humans are, admitting his only original goal was literally just to survive. As time went on, the foreigner noticed that the second he got a base, he instantly wanted to upgrade it so his kid could play freely. The guy keeps mumbling new words, silently admitting he now wants to 100 master reading and writing. Staring at his wife with deep affection, he knows she's the biggest reason he's thankful in this world. While the big guy studies fruit names, he notices his partner looks like she's about to crash hard after all the house chores. Defeated by exhaustion, Lizzie drops her head softly and rests it on her partner's wide shoulder. Caught off guard by the random touch, our MC drops a super genuine, quiet thank you. Wrapping the young girl in a protective hug, he feels his heart warm up from her cozy touch. The guy rubs his wife's shoulder with massive affection, enjoying the sweetness of finally having someone to love. Fingers locked together, the big guy softly rubs his wife's hand. Hugging the girl warmly from behind, he rests his face on her head, making the young girl a bit shy from being so close. Right after, the couple walks together through the dark room, with the guy holding a lantern to keep their path safe. Outside, a chill vibe rules the night, keeping things super peaceful around there. The next day, a wagon rolls down the dirt forest road, facing a day-and-a-half grind just to reach the big city. Inside the super bumpy ride, one of the guys complains his whole body is stiff, crying about how annoying and expensive the trip is. But the village boss promises the grind will be worth it, cracking up remembering that healer mages are usually super weak and tiny NPCs. Thinking about the foreigner's absurd build, the leader admits the mountain guy is a massive exception, never having seen anyone so jacked in his life. With a super greedy smirk, the boomer calculates he'll easily farm a bunch of gold coins selling this premium intel. Then one of the goons asks what happens if their own nation summons a hero too, reminding them the enemies have tried it a ton of times. The guy drops a rumor that the enemy temple might have already pulled a summon, but heavily doubts that Savior is even real. Shutting down the theory, the other villager says it's crazy to believe in some guy from hundreds of years ago, claiming any faker would get exposed instantly. Listening in, the boss realizes living off the grid made him totally forget how dangerously close they are to the enemy nation. Watching the wagon roll on, the leader decides he needs to speedrun selling the outsider's secret, grab the bag, and dip before an invasion happens. Far from there, little Dorothy jumps with joy in front of the new fluffy pet, calling the bunny to wake up and play. Seeing the kid staring at the animal, the young wifey makes it crystal clear that this little guy is not food. Sighing tiredly while holding the basket, the girl asks if her daughter lost her mind, reminding her nobody eats babies that small. Wiping the kid's mouth, the mom tells her to stop drooling if she already knows the rule, leaving the little girl looking pensive. A light bulb goes off, and the kid happily announces the little bunny needs to eat. Wasting zero time, Dorothy sprints off full of energy, telling her mom she's gonna get lunch for the new pets. Approaching a wooden fence, the kid thinks it's weird her stepdad built that, since they literally already have a whole house. It clicks instantly, and the little girl perfectly remembers why he built that tiny rustic. Walking up to the well-made little pen, she drops a super happy giggle taking on the mission to feed the animals. But the kid looks totally bored staring at two massive dark beasts, thinking the mobs are way too ugly. Ignoring how scary they look, she eats a huge pile of green weeds at the creatures, telling them to choke it down. Turning her back on the beasts, the little girl announces she's super busy today, ordering the mobs to behave and eat by themselves. A bit further ahead, she finds a massive pile of fresh green leaves and gets hyped seeing there's still plenty of food left. Grabbing the leaves, the kid feels like she unlocked magic powers too, dying to show off this epic update to her dad when he gets back. The kid's imagination goes crazy, drooling at the idea of using this supposed magic to cook up some premium barbecue. Totally euphoric, Dorothy throws the rest of the weeds to the actual bunnies, celebrating her huge daily quest success. Sitting on the living room floor, the young girl hugs a massive dark pelt, remembering the merchant's wagon is about to hit the village. Petting the soft material, she knows it's worth a solid bag of coins, but hesitates to sell it since it's her husband's first epic drop. Thinking about the family's needs, she mentally lists that she needs to buy good clothes, heavy boots, and a bunch of useful gear for the big guy. Staring at one simple rabbit pelt, it clicks that just that tiny item would literally never cover the cost of all those heavy upgrades. With a determined look, Lizzie makes a hardcore play to guarantee the comfort her family desperately needs. Throwing her arms up, the young girl ties her long brown hair into a tight ponytail, getting ready for what's next. In one fast, zero-regrets move, the scissors slice right through her soft hair all at once. Later, the sun shines on the cabin's rustic roof, along with the foreigner's voice announcing he's finally back from the grind. The second the guy walks through the door, little Dorothy runs euphorically to hug his legs, getting a super sweet greeting back. The wife walks up looking totally chill to welcome her partner, leaving our MC completely paralyzed in shock. Juwon's face is pure shock, while the little girl tugs his clothes asking if he noticed the massive update. Rocking her brand new super short hair, the girl gives a shy smile, while her daughter loudly announces her mom's long hair got deleted. The big guy whispers his wife's name, still buffering her totally new skin. Worried, he asks what happened to her long hair, and she replies super casually that she just decided to chop it. Absolutely triggered by the update, the kid pouts, complaining her mom's long hair was way too pretty to get cut. Piecing the situation together, the guy looks incredibly guilty, bummed that the young girl sacrificed something so beautiful because of him. Speed walking across the room, the foreigner approaches his partner saying her name with a super sad vibe. With extreme gentleness, he touches the ends of her short hair and drops a genuine apology, getting completely caught off guard by her reaction. Staring at her partner with sparkling eyes, Lizzie admits internally that this big guy is seriously a wonderfully weird dude. The brutal past surfaces, reminding her that women in this trash region only grew their hair out to sell it to merchants for food. Snapping back to the present, the girl feels a lump in her throat, totally emotional over the pure sweetness and care in her husband's words. In a burst of pure affection, she hugs our MC super tight, crying real tears of absolute happiness. Watching the wholesome scene, the little girl flashes a radiant smile, feeling her own little heart warm up seeing her parents vibe together. A bit later, the guy crouches in the grass while little Dorothy begs her mom to hop on his back too, even though the young girl thinks it'll be way too heavy. The foreigner stands up like it's nothing, balancing the massive luggage and his daughter on his back without breaking a sweat. Holding hands with his wife, the big guy walks down the dirt trail flexing a huge smile on their family road trip. The squad finally hits the nearest village, walking into a super busy hub packed with stone buildings. Walking the dirt streets with the two of them, the little girl catches an amazing smell of food coming from the local stalls. Looking at the crowd, Juin tries to remember how long it's been since he walked through a place this packed. His brain jumps straight back to Christmas Eve, remembering the day he walked totally solo bumping into the rushing crowd. Watching his partner and the little girl walking right in front of him, the guy cuts off his own nostalgic thoughts. The freezing memory of his past life hits hard, bringing back the cold, colorless vibe of the modern city he spawned from. In those sad times, the young guy walked with his head down, totally isolated in a street full of NPCs. But looking at his bright present, he realizes he hit the jackpot having an amazing wife and a super hyped kid by his side. A smile of massive gratitude takes over his face, finally unlocking how awesome it feels to just hang out with family. Amazed by the new zone, little Dorothy sprints toward the stalls loaded with new. Pointing enchanted at the giant iron pots, the kid tells her parents she wants to check everything out up close. In the middle of the trade hub, merchants spam their prices and yell trying to pull aggro from the massive crowd. Watching the chaotic vibe, the little girl's eyes sparkle with pure curiosity about this entirely new server. Out of nowhere, a well-dressed blonde kid stops right in front of her, catching the little girl totally off guard. Staring at the kid intently, the boy notices a strong resemblance, making the little girl a bit confused by his weird comments. The parents roll up right behind to guard their daughter, and the boy looks away spooked, intimidated by the foreigner's massive build. Right after, the big guy drops the loot on the counter of the trade shop, including the locks of hair his wife chopped off. Inspecting the material closely, the veteran merchant mutters thoughtfully, while Juin and Lizzie wait for the offer in dead silence. Putting on a business face, the shopkeeper tries to lowball them, claiming pelt values crashed hard lately, making the girl pretty bummed out. The merchant checks the rabbit pelt and realizes it's in mint condition, deciding to hide this premium intel to scam them on the deal. Handing over just a few cheap items in exchange, the guy claims that's his max offer. The girl sighs in frustration, while the man silently celebrates thinking she already accepted the garbage. Keeping up his tough guy trader act, the shopkeeper slides the basic items toward the young girl to force the trade right then and there. Right then, the big guy steps up and stands menacingly right behind his wife. The vendor's eyes bug out in total shock, admitting he's literally never seen a dude this giant in his life. The vibe gets heavy in the stall, with our MC staring the merchant down in absolute silence, leaving the guy sweating bullets from pure panic under that scary shadow. With zero patience, the foreigner reaches out and yanks the pelt back firmly, canceling the toxic trade. Pulling his wife away from the spot, the outsider ignores the merchant, who grumbles terrified by the absurd brute strength he felt in that grip. Walking away through the market, Juin announces they're gonna find another city to sell their loot, 100 positive the dude was lying to their faces. Confused by the sudden move, the young girl argues the next village is way too far. Her husband just chills her out, promising they'll get there super fast with his walking pace. Matching her partner's steps, the girl thinks about how aggressively he canceled the deal, processing his claim that the shopkeeper tried to scam her. Desperate not to fumble the massive bag, the vendor chases the couple, swearing he was just giving the standard server price. Deep down, he knows he tried to swipe the premium loot for pennies, playing on the foreigner's lack of info. Trying to fix his epic fail, the panting dude promises to take the supposed L. He buffs the offer, throwing salt, pots, and even men's clothes into the bundle to try and win the couple back. Watching this crazy 180 in attitude, Lizzie wonders why he's suddenly acting like a saint, while the foreigner just shoots a look of absolute disgust at the scammer. Ignoring the greedy guy's new offer, the big guy decides they need to hit up a zone that actually pays fair market value for the family's grind. The young girl agrees and keeps walking with him without a second thought. In his head, the guy plans to carry his wife on his back since the route is crazy long, but she quickly lets him know she can easily walk next to him. Left in the dust in the middle of the dirt road, the shopkeeper cries in despair, whining about losing the best RNG drop of the day. Trying one last pathetic play, the guy reaches out and yells, begging the couple to wait just a little longer. But pure silence is the only reply he gets, forcing the dude to bitterly accept he ruined his own bag out of pure greed. Far from the stall, the couple keeps walking side by side through the busy market, completely ignoring the merchants crying. Nearby, some village kids point at the big guy's height, completely amazed. Little Dorothy instantly gets salty and fiercely defends that the giant is just her dad, until the guy calls her so they can finally bounce. Sprinting to catch up with her parents, the little girl keeps screaming at the top of her lungs to make sure everyone knows who owns that here. Time flies and the noisy big city fades away as the soft afternoon light hits the massive forest. Snuggled on our MC's broad back, the little girl smells a super familiar, cozy scent. The kid drifts into a chill sleep, 100 sure she's totally safe with her super dad. Half asleep, the little one wonders why she's feeling so warm, remembering the weather was literally freezing just a minute ago. The reality clicks, and the little girl realizes the foreigner tucked her inside his own warm coat, carrying the kid and the loot while hiking under the moonlight. With a sudden jump, Dorothy pops her head out of the jacket looking super stressed. The little girl just remembered the fluffy pet waiting back at the base. Demanding to be put down immediately, the kid announces she has to feed the little animal ASAP. The big guy and the girl crack up at her adorable, responsible panic. Super carefully, the guy sets his stepdaughter down on the dirt, letting the kid loose to complete her epic dad mission. Wasting 0 seconds, the little girl sprints like crazy toward the rustic cabin, yelling to the pet that she finally made it back from the trip. Right in the dark yard, she grabs a massive handful of fresh leaves, totally locked in on hooking the little guy up with a premium dinner. Hauling the green leaves with major effort, Dorothy runs, hyped toward the wooden pen to deliver the feast. Suddenly, the kid's sparkling eyes bug out, paralyzed by a totally messed up surprise during her night visit. Staring at the empty little structure, the little girl realizes in pure shock that the horned pet literally despawned. Panic hits hard and the kid starts bawling instantly, dropping all the food in the grass while she cries her eyes out over the lost pet. Spooked by the sudden screaming, Lizzie rushes over asking what happened. Sobbing uncontrollably, the little girl tries to explain that the animal vanished from its new house. Hugging her daughter with tons of love, the young girl tries to comfort the kid, praying the runaway creature finds its way back to base soon. Just then, the foreigner steps out of the house totally stressed by the loud crying. He asks what's going on, but notices his own wife also has tears in her eyes. Stopping next to them, the big guy is super confused and tries to confirm if all this family drama is really just because the rabbit escaped. Confused by his partner's reaction, the guy asks why she's crying too. The girl mourns the lost pet, remembering the insane grind her husband went through to catch it alive. Caught totally off guard by this massive overreaction, our MC is left speechless by all this suffering over such a basic mob. Unable to hold it together, the guy bursts into a loud, genuine laugh, totally clashing with the little girl's dramatic crying in the yard. Annoyed by his badly timed laughing, Dorothy smacks his leg, mumbling angry threats, but the big guy just calls them both adorable and promises he can easily catch another pet tomorrow. Petting his wife's hair affectionately, the protagonist admits he's incredibly happy they can laugh and cry together over such pure, wholesome stuff. Far from that cozy family vibe, the dark night swallows the thick forest while the old hunter scouts the zone hiding behind a massive rock. Looking dead serious and stressed out, the veteran master whispers in relief that he finally found the spawn point he's been tracking for years. Peeking through the dark mountain, the creepy shadow of a goblin is just chilling near an old, busted wooden structure. The freakish monster flashes its sharp teeth and glowing red eyes, dropping a deep, aggressive growl into the empty night. Watching the beast from afar, veteran Gus gets a massive urge to just rush in and delete it right there, but knows trying to solo this would be a tragic wipe with zero strategy. Brainstorming strats, the old man visualizes the nest packed with aggro mobs. He calculates that the overpopulation and lack of women will make the squad implode, causing a brutal massacre inside. With a cold, calculated look, the hunter knows if even one of those creatures decides to raid the nearby village, the rest of the mob will lose their minds and trigger an absolute bloodbath in the zone. Evaluating the enemies he studied his whole life, the master remembers goblins have trash stats 1v1. The real danger is their crazy spawn rate and their terrifying habit of always jumping you in massive squads. A bitter memory hits the old guy, remembering these monsters kidnap human girls, trapping them in a miserable life in the dark caves. Turning away from the danger zone, the old man decides they need to start the raid ASAP. The push has to happen before spring, when the mob's breeding instincts go totally out of control. Walking slowly down the night trail, Gus concludes his only shot at winning this impossible war is using the foreigner's absurd brute strength. Remembering the guy's genuine smile thanking him for the tutorials puts a massive weight on the master's conscience, feeling a bit bad for basically manipulating his own student. Pushing the hesitation away, the veteran accepts he literally has no other viable strat. He promises himself Juin is the only lethal weapon capable of permanently wiping out this goblin plague. The next morning, the weather is super bright. Young Lizzie pops the wooden cabin door open and lets out a long yawn to kick off her daily routine. Checking out the sunny yard, she spots her husband's silhouette rushing back and calls his name, Totally surprised he logged back on so early. The big guy sprints across the clearing, taking massive steps, panting and rushing to reunite with his wife as fast as possible. Stopping right in front of the young girl, Juin proudly flexes two big down targets, leaving the girl amazed by the fresh rabbit loot for the family. Blown away by his speed and the massive drop rate, the young girl excitedly asks if he really farmed all that meat just this morning. The big guy just mumbles a bit awkwardly, gripping his axe tight. The guy's brain instantly flashes back to the recent chaos in the forest, remembering the exact second he tried to catch the live target with his bare hands. In a desperate, clumsy dive, the foreigner totally wiped out trying to grab the creature, face-planting into the dirt like a total noob. The tiny little animal just watched the embarrassing fail from a distance, completely untouched and having no clue what the giant hunter was even doing. Salty in the middle of the woods, our MC bitterly accepted that his pacifist run to catch a live pet was 100 chalk. With hilarious rage and gripping his sharp weapon, Juin swore to himself he wouldn't go back to base empty-handed no matter what. Dropping the nice guy act, the guy triggered a frantic hunt through the trees, sprinting like a madman to secure the lunch drop. Snapping back to reality in the yard, his wife praises her partner's skills with pure admiration. Straight up capping, he hides his embarrassment and swears the elimination was super fast and easy. The young girl quickly asks what the special recipe is gonna be for that premium meat, suggesting roasting it over the fire or currying it with the salt they just bought. Getting hyped for the cooking stream, the big guy instantly decides the best way to fix their HP is roasting the fresh loot on the grill. Taking over the cooking in the rustic yard, the foreigner preps the meat like a pro. He suggests mixing the salt with the fire to massively buff the rustic flavor of the meal. Young Lizzie promises to make the banquet tier 1, getting a super hyped and happy response from her starving husband. Kneeling near the makeshift fire, Juin spins the wooden spit carefully. He flexes, saying the bamboo will add a high-class touch to the stuffed veggies. Watching the flames die down on the stones, the chef complains angrily that the fire is logging off right at the most important part of the cook. By pure magical RNG, our MC looks at his own hand and notices glowing sparks randomly spawning on his fingers, scoring the perfect tool to reboot the grill. Staring at the tiny flame on his finger, Juin complains that this power is kind of a trash tier ability, admitting it might be clutch sometimes, but it's really just a harmless little spark. Focused on cooking for the squad, the foreigner tells himself he needs to cook the meat perfectly before his girls starve to death out in the woods. Wasting zero time, the big guy points his finger and tries to transfer the tiny flame straight onto the food on the wooden spit. But the RNG goes totally wild when a massive explosion of fire swallows the entire piece of meat in a split second. Freaking out over the spell's insane scaling, the guy jumps back and begs the magic to stop torching his new family's premium dinner. Confused as smoke rises from his hand, he tries to buffer how the power hits so hard after failing a million times, guessing the spell's trigger doesn't actually come from his own body. The flashback of the boss fight against the beast in the woods hits him, making him realize the fire didn't shoot out of him, but spawned directly onto the target that day. Connecting the dots, our MC concludes that casting the magic directly on the target perfectly explains why he never takes burn damage on his own skin. Hyped by the new meta, he crouches back down near the fire and focuses his brain, visualizing the fire wrapping around the meat super gently with perfect control. With laser focus, the foreigner puts all his attention into scoring a perfectly golden, insanely juicy roast. The theory gets confirmed instantly, leaving the guy amazed that he finally cracked the code to control his hidden power. The perfect temperature control guarantees the meat cooks flawlessly on the rustic setup, dropping an aroma that makes your mouth water. Admiring his own masterpiece in the yard, Juin can barely believe he cooked up a royal tier banquet just using his brain. Right after, he serves the steaming hot meal on the wooden table, getting amazed gasps from his wife and stepdaughter who ask about the fancy dish. Completely ignoring the fancy vocab, little Dorothy slams the table yelling she wants to demolish that meat ASAP. Moving fast, the big guy cuts a massive slice of the freshly roasted loot, slicing the softest and juiciest part. With a super warm vibe, he hands the premium meal to the girl and the kid, hyping them up to try the new drop. Wasting zero time, mom and daughter take their first bite of the magic roast, enjoying every second of that surprise hot meal. The god-tier taste wins them over instantly, making the duo hum in pure joy with their HP finally. Watching the wholesome scene, our MC feels his heart melt, finally understanding the old saying that just seeing your family happy is enough to feed your soul. The peaceful vibe takes over the yard lunch, while the guy reflects that mastering the fire actually became super easy after that first big brain moment. His mind drifts to his tests deep in the mountain, remembering he could snipe targets with lethal fire from a solid distance with crazy accuracy. Thinking about a giant rock getting melted by the extreme heat, the foreigner accepts that level of AoE damage is terrifying if used against a live target. Checking his own hands, he gains unbreakable confidence, 100 sure the combo of healing and fire magic will guarantee his wife and kids stay safe. The image of the weird old guy from the city pops into his head, making the guy believe that op magic was a direct care package to help him defend his new base. Doing a total 180 on his opinion of the supposed crazy guy, Juin decides to set up a massive loot altar as a genuine thank you when the holidays drop. Suddenly, a quiet noise breaks the chill vibe in the yard, making the big guy turn his head fast to see the rescued pet finally woke up from its deep sleep. Super hyped, little Dorothy walks around the house carrying the rustic basket, promising to give the new fluffy friend the ultimate base tour. Showing off every corner looking dead serious, the little girl points out the exact spot where the squad links up to craft their daily meals. The tiny animal just watches everything silently from inside the container, while the mini tour guide hypes up how crucial that room is for their survival. Keeping the fun tour going, the kid points at the cabin's solid frame and explains with pure innocence that it's literally just a wooden wall. Right after, the little girl runs toward her young mom who's grinding house chores, happily announcing she's about to introduce the most MVP person in the house. Caught off guard, Lizzie pauses her work, listening to the little girl firmly demand that the pet never forgets her mom's sweet face. Interrupting the cute intro, our MC walks into the room looking chill, instantly getting rushed by a euphoric, high-energy scream from his daughter. The kid runs at the foreigner, flexing the little animal with massive pride, ordering the pet to say what's up to the giant, epic dad of the family. Kneeling down to check out the pet, Juin gets totally confused when the kid confidently announces the rabbit's new name is Dorothy. Not getting the kid logic at all, the big guy asks why she named the mob after herself, while his wife slowly steps up behind him. Standing in the middle of the bright room, the young girl looks away acting super nervous, keeping a silence packed with tension and major mystery. The foreigner stands up slowly to look at his partner, putting the puzzle pieces together until reality hits him like a truck, putting him on high alert. The guy freezes completely in front of his wife, trying to buffer the amazing idea that this young girl is hiding a massive secret. The big guy's legs give out instantly, making him collapse to his knees on the dirt floor from the insane emotional critical hit of that silent reveal. Holding Lizzie's hands like she's the most high-tier loot in the world, his mind flies away picturing an adorable little angel, overflowing with joy finding out the squad is about to level up.